I guess we can go ahead and stand. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
justice
with liberty and justice
for all. We'll have roll call, please.
Mr. Carson,
Here.
Dr. Fike,
Here.
Mrs. Love,
Here.
Mr. Polakowski,
Here.
Mrs. Raymond,
Here.
Mrs. Heather Smith, Mrs. Christy Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Here.
For the record, Mrs. Heather Smith indicated she would not be present this evening.
And also, for matter of record, we did have an executive session to discuss personnel. Peggy, do we have any citizens' comments?
No, we don't.
All right, moving on. Minutes of the October 8th, 2020 meeting. Can we just, instead of doing all three, can we do, all three of them separately? Can we do all three at one time? David?
You can unless there's an objection.
Is there an objection to this?
I'm voting no on the minutes of October 26th. But the other two are fine.
So David, do we have to do them separate then?
We'll do
No,
the
I
two
think
together. and then-
Okay. Minutes of the October 8th, October 15th, and minutes of the October 26th meeting.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the minutes of the October 8th, October 15th, and October 26th virtual voting meetings.
I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. These are voice votes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. 2020 September Treasury Cash Investment Report.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the September 2020 Treasurer Cash Investment Report.
I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table these until Mr. Marnell's back. Does that affect anything?
Does that hold up paying our bills, Christy?
That's what I'm asking. I don't know. If it does, of course, I don't want to make a motion to table. If it does not hold up paying bills, because I think the check summary's done. They've already written the checks.
Okay.
I would assume not, but I guess Mr. Matcher and Mr. Botonic could answer that.
Well, I think the general, that would be item number 2. General fund accounting. I don't have my screen up as to which one includes the list of account
It's
payable.
general fund accounting check summary for 2020, and then it's 2020 board summary report. Are the items under their accounts?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to look as to.
Okay.
So this says check, it says general fund from 10/1 to 10/31. So have these bills been paid already, or are we, I would say these are already paid.
I think so too.
I just know we had questions last week and I still have questions this week. So I just thought it would be better to table it. If no one seconds it, let's vote and keep going.
Is there a second to Christie's motion?
I did second that.
Oh, okay. Is there any further discussion on this?
Yeah, Gail, when these checks are written, are they sent out before we actually approve it? That was I don't know where I'm coming from on this. If they occurred in October, were they already paid? So it doesn't even matter if we approve them? Or, because they're already out, right? They're already out?
Mr. Masha, I assume that that's correct?
I believe it is, but I would not like to be held
Mm-hmm.
to do that. It's difficult without Mr. Marnell being present to actually know all the fine particulars.
Well, generally, the October bills have been paid. I think we're just backdating our approval, I think.
I don't know if that's always true.
No?
I don't know that. I'm trying to look. I don't think even by looking, I'm gonna know that.
Because usually they're due at a certain time, and I would assume we're paying by the due date, which would not be now. It would be before this, I think.
But I think there's some things in here that may not be.
Gail, after we're done figuring this out, can I make a motion that we suspend the rules and allow Ms. Robbins to give her presentation from Jacobs Creek Watershed instead of her sitting through? the whole-
Yes, that's a good idea. Let's do
I'm
that.
sure she would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Am I free to speak then?
We need, just let us figure out what's going on with this first, and then we'll move to.
You.
Okay,
We'll move
thank
to you.
you.
Go ahead,
are
David.
you voting on the treasurer's report? I think you can vote on that, or do you want to stop that and have a motion to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Robbins on?
How about if we have a motion to suspend the rules while we're figuring this out?
Second,
All right. Do we
I'll
need a
ask for
voice
all in
vote on
favor.
that, David?
Yes.
All those in favor of suspending the rules, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Go ahead. Ms. Robbins.
Okay, if possible, I'm Taylor from Jacobs Creek Watershed Association, and I would like to share my screen if possible. I put together a short presentation to share with you guys, just so that you're able to see the different maps and things of where the project will be taking place.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Are you guys able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So like I said, my name's Taylor from Jacobs Creek Watershed Association, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Southmoreland High School Rain Garden Project, which we would like to move forward. So to give a little background about Jacobs Creek Watershed Association, we are a local small nonprofit organization dedicated to the conservation of our natural resources, the rehabilitation of the creek and watershed, environmental education, and recreation. So in terms of this project, we are focusing on rehabilitation of a creek to help reduce flooding on your property. So the project, which is moving forward, is installing a rain garden at the Southmoreland High School. So a rain garden is a depressed area in the landscape that collects rainwater and allows it to soak up into the ground. Oftentimes grasses and different flowers are planted in the gardens, and the gardens are a cost-effective way to reduce stormwater runoff and to help filter out pollutants. They're also an added benefit for providing food and shelter for wildlife. So the rain garden that we would like to install is actually the third phase of a design which was developed in 2014, which Southmoreland, we have an agreement with Southmoreland for these projects. The first two phases of this project was to install a rain garden and 2 porous pavements at the Southmoreland High School on the upper and lower parking lots. So this is the final phase of that design that was created in 2014. As you can see on this map, the rain garden, which is to be constructed, will be located, I believe this is your maintenance building down here by the football field. So where this blue outline is, that is the approximate size and location of the rain garden. It's behind this well that you have on your land, and to the right come down this paved area. So that is the location of the proposed rain garden. And this picture here is a good example of what that rain garden may look like at that spot. I was told, I was talking to our engineer who designed this project. It should look fairly similar to this photo, but just it's going to be a little bit deeper shown in this picture. This picture is only about an 18 to 24 inch deep rain garden, whereas your rain garden will be about 36 inches. And also the plants pictured in this photo will be a little bit different, but I do have, we know what plants and vegetation will be planted in your rain garden. So on the next slide, I do have some example photos of those plants. So these are some of the plants that will be planted in your rain garden. The first is a kind of a mix of different native grasses and forbs. So the forbs are different types of flowers, like these flowers pictured here, and just different types of native grasses. You'll also have some red switchgrass, which is this red plant back here, which will be planted, and short-beard plume grass as well, which is this photo pictured. And then in your rain garden, you also have some two lovely yellow birch trees that will be planted. I did send you guys a couple months ago the design, but I understand that this design can look a bit confusing. But so I copied it here for what our engineers developed. And basically what this rain garden is depicting is the shape and also where the plants that I showed you on the previous slide will be planted. So the key here is on the right, but these two large circles are where the two birch trees will be planted. This kind of cloud of different X's is where the short-beard plume grass will be. The X mark in the middle of the rain garden is where that mix of different grasses will be. And then the grayed out area is where that red switchgrass will be. So the design basically just depicts the different vegetation that will be, it depicts the location of the vegetation that will be in the rain garden. And like I said, the rain garden will be located here next to the maintenance building behind the well. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
I'm Dave Petonic, the solicitor. And do you know what the deadline is for Southmoreland to make its decision?
For this project, we would like to be able to put the construction bids out by March, spring. So if you could make a decision either, I would say by January at the latest, the sooner the better. That way our engineers, know that they get the go ahead to start putting together the bid package for construction. But I would say definitely January at the latest.
All right. So it's not something that has to be decided tonight.
No, it's not. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the project and, to answer your questions the best of my ability.
And the reason I asked that question was that the school district has been hoping, waiting, praying for a sewer line project. And there was some significant rumor on that late last fall. And then the COVID pandemic hit and nothing seems to be happening. I sent a letter to the solicitor for East Huntington Township inquiring about having their engineer look at this to see if the placement of the rain garden would be an obvious impediment to a future township sewer project. My hope is that it's sufficiently enough uphill from Stauffer Run so as not to be involved. But I was concerned about that because if this were put in and then it had to be disturbed, that might create a lot of unnecessary expense and maybe some other issues. So that was the reason for my expense or my question. And he had emailed me back saying that he's going to place a call to the township engineer, and he promised to call me back on Friday, but I'm not sure if that's going to be a definitive answer. But
Of
just
course.
as another technical question, will this be sloped or will it be sort of like stepped into the hillside and sort of made like its own little plateau?
So I'm going to answer the first question first about the concern of the sewage system. So I, as a nonprofit organization, I am comfortable with reaching out to the people in charge of installing the sewage system, and I'll see if they have any plans and if that may impair with the rain garden. If it does, if it is in like the same location as the rain garden, we are willing to move the rain garden if necessary. Just the location that it is set in is probably the most beneficial area for the flooding. But if for some reason heavy sewage is proposed in the same location, then we can certainly try and figure something out, come up with a different design. I'll have to talk with our engineers and make the necessary changes as needed.
Thank you.
Second question, I cannot answer that as I am not an engineer. We have a consulting company and I am just not familiar with the exact construction of the project, but I can certainly bring that question to them and give you the answer to you. Is that acceptable?
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Is there a fence that needs to be built around the rainforest like the other one that we have?
To my knowledge, I don't believe a fence is needed. But it's another question I can ask our engineers. But I don't believe in the design there is a fence involved.
If I could, just kind of to go along with what Jason was indicating, I know occasionally for different events at the stadium, sometimes parking gravitates over towards that direction. So will this be something that will be really obvious that people will be able to know that this is there and people won't end up in it, basically, driving through it or anything like that? Will it be easy to tell that it's there and it's not just random grass in the field?
I mean, I would say it's pretty obvious, and you also have two birch trees.
Okay.
So hopefully they're not running into the trees.
Okay.
Like that. So I think you should be good at in that aspect.
I have a question.
Yes.
Number 9 on the landowner, grantee agreement. It says that landowner, who's us, I'm assuming, agrees to refund all or part of the grant money paid to it as determined by the grantee and the DEP if we voluntarily relinquish title, we do not take care of it right, if we don't maintain it the way you say. What does that mean? We agree to refund the grant money?
I believe, just based on the experience that I have so far, so this project is funded by a grant through the Department of Environmental Protection and the Environmental Protection Agency, otherwise known as DEP and the EPA. So all of the project is not coming out of Jacobs Creek Watershed's pocket, as we don't have funds like that readily available, as this project cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement. So the funds to do this project is then given to us by the DEP and the EPA, and that is our grant money. The grant funds come from them. In the landowner agreements, at the, I believe towards the bottom of the page, there is a table, and I put in the requirements to maintain, I put in the maintenance requirements for the rain garden, which includes things like cleaning out the grates where the water comes into the rain garden, and just making sure that the plants are healthy and doing good like that. So all of the guidelines that are necessary are in the landowner agreement. So it is just asked of you to follow those requirements, and most people do. I don't believe we've ever had any problems with organizations not following those requirements. But I would say if for some reason there's like an extreme drastic, situation where I don't know, where something horrible happens, then you might be asked to reimburse those funds. But I don't believe that has ever happened, and nor do I think it will. It's fine. Basically how it works is we do the project, we bring the funds, we do the project for you. You're just promising us that you're just going to take care of it. You're not going to destroy it or anything. And I believe you have to take care of it for 20 years. And then after that, you can technically do whatever you want with it. But just within that 20 years, you're just promising to maintain the rain garden. That way we get the most, that way our grant funds were used correctly for at least 20 years, and it wasn't like a waste of money or something like that. So just for that 20 years, you're required to maintain it. And if not, perhaps you might be asked to give us money, but we have never asked that of any of our people, any of our partners in our project. So you'll be totally fine.
I read your contract, and you have an extensive list of our responsibilities, but I didn't see any of them that were your responsibilities. Can you tell me over this 20-year period what your responsibilities are for this rain garden?
So a part of the landowner agreement is that it is the landowner's responsibility. So we are, we're designing the project, we're constructing the project, we're making sure that everything, is best, we use best management practices, so that everything works efficiently. So in that aspect, we do all of the work in the very beginning, and it is the landowner's responsibility to then continue to take care of the project. We started off.
Once you put it in, you're done with it.
Yeah, for the most part, yes.
Is this similar to the downtown rain gardens and the bump outs and the things that happen? I think, was that the same sort of agreement? I know that you weren't here for that, but
yeah,
I feel like that was the same. It was 20 years. And the question I have is, according to this, I feel like we already agreed to this. And Mr. Botonic can answer this, it might not be you, but are we in a contract with you, or would we owe the funds back to EPA, or would you own the funds back if something happened?
Okay, to answer the first question, well, all of our landowner agreements, the landowner agreements are given to us by the DEP. So we are just giving you the landowner agreements that they require. And in all of their landowner agreements, it is 20 years. So any projects that we do throughout our watershed that have funds from the DEP, it is a 20-year contract. There are a bunch of different styles of rain gardens. This would be, I would say, most similar to the rain garden that you already have on your property, as it is the same engineer and it is the same design. So it will be most similar to that. And like the picture I showed you earlier, it's not really like a bump out situation. It's more so like a—
No, I didn't mean it. Yeah. I meant contract wise. No, yeah. I understand it's not the same as that. That's not what I meant. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I apologize. But yes, the agreement is then the same. Was there a second question?
So are we in agreement? Are we in contract with EPA or you?
The landowner agreement is with us, but just the landowner agreement is given to us by the DEP. So basically, we're just following their regulations, but you would be in agreement with Jacobs Creek Watershed Association.
Ms. Robbins?
And if the money, yes.
I think maybe where we're headed with this is that, and I don't know if you were involved back then, and actually I don't have perfect recall of this. I believe that going back to 2014, at some point, part of this project involved your entity and DEP, you being the method that the funds flow through, paid for a porous pavement parking area or something. And I don't know if you can show that on the screen, but I think that was the benefit that the district received as part of this overall plan that both is to keep, to slow down the movement of water into the stream and keep it clean, plus have a pavement that wouldn't just cause the water to run off, but again, slowly go into the groundwater. And that I think, if I'm doing this from memory, that that's already been installed and we have it.
Yes, so in 2014, Jacobs Creek Watershed Association and our current engineers, LSSE, we developed a design, and it was cut up into 3 projects. So this is the third one, and we have already constructed the first 2, which, as you mentioned, we installed a porous, 2 porous pavement parking lots and 1 rain garden at the senior high school. So those projects have already completed. The only reason they were split up is because of grant funds. They each of these projects costs, $300,000 or so. So they don't normally give out $1 million at once. So we just had to split it up into 3 different projects. So yes, the first 2 phases of this project have already been completed. This is the 3rd phase. And we do already have a landowner agreement with you that was signed in 2014 and does include all 3 of the projects, 2 that were already completed, and this rain garden to be completed. Just it is common practice that whenever you get a new grant that another landowner agreement is signed, especially since the original one was signed back in 2014. And this now won't happen until 2021.
I think what may be confusing, at least for me, is that I was under and when you say the high school, you may be referring to all the property in Alverton that is associated with the high school. I'm not clear whether the porous pavement parking areas, both of them are literally close to the high school building or on the other side of State Route 981, closer to Scottsdale and actually adjacent to the maintenance building, which is the building that is shown on your drawing. Is that where one of the porous pavement parking lots is, if you know?
Gotcha. I am not sure, going through because I wasn't here back then, but going through my documents, it is just referred to as the upper and the lower parking lot at the Southmoreland High School. So I assumed that was the the upper and lower parking lots at the high school that I'm familiar with, but possibly use a different location, but I believe it was the parking lot surrounding the high school.
Okay, because on the drawing, it refers to a gravel parking lot, and that's what threw me. I wasn't sure if that was what was put in, and maybe Mr. Pasha knows. I don't know for sure exactly where both of these are. I just know that
I believe, well, I'm only going to say this because I went to Southmoreland, and in 2014, when this was developed, that road was still gravel.
Okay.
So the design was developed whenever a gravel road was still there. And since then, there is not gravel anymore. So that may be more the confusion is coming from, because originally when the design was drafted, it was next to a gravel road, but it has since been paved.
Maybe
I
if you
had a
could
quick-
get us an answer on that, just so everybody's clear on, so they can see what it is that we got, that might be helpful to
Yeah.
everybody.
Of course. No, I apologize. I'm fairly new to this project, so I'm doing my best to answer all of your questions.
So, Mr. Potonik, I have a question about fencing. So I did go up and look at the one that is behind the middle school, and there's a big fence around that. Do you know if that fence is something that the school district put in and we paid for, or was that something that Jacobs Creek that was covered under our grant?
I don't know. I don't remember that far back. I just know that it's there and that it was approved, but I don't remember who paid for the fence.
I can't
Because
remember.
I'm assuming if there's a fence around that one, there would need to be a fence around the new one. And if this requires us spending money,
That could have been because that was in close position to the athletic fields there with the soccer and other activities that were directly adjacent to it. This is away from the football field and, getting down close to the smelly sewer plant.
I think it's a different kind too. I don't believe that the rain one is going to be as deep. The ones in the back aren't, they're pretty deep, aren't they?
Yes, and I do believe part of the problem was that rain garden behind the middle school is also right next to the SEA playground. And I think there were some concerns about the possibility of the younger students possibly falling into that area. That's my recollection. It just seems to me that was part of the process.
So this contract goes until the year 2040?
If you were to sign a new contract, yes.
What is the organizational structure of Jacobs Water Creek? What are you?
We are a nonprofit, so we have a board that governs us, and then we have 2 employees at our office, which includes me and our executive director.
So you're a nonprofit and you depend on grants. That's your source of income, right?
Yes.
And if you don't get them, what happens to you?
If we don't get any grants, then we would not be able to operate. So
But our 20-year contract would still continue.
Well, this contract is just to keep the project going. If for some reason you would not want to proceed with the project, then yes, we would lose some money, just because often our salaries are written into the project. For like any time that I'm working on this project, some of my salary would be taken in. That's considered in the administration part of a grant when you write it. But if for some reason you wouldn't want to proceed, then we would have to return the money to the Department of Environmental Protection.
So your contract says that 20 years from now, this rain garden will still be in the same condition, basically, that it is when you install it with appropriate maintenance. Is that right?
It should be in relatively the same condition, yes. Any other questions?
All right, I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for coming, for Zooming and joining us here tonight. And
of course, thank you for inviting me. I apologize that I can't answer all of your questions right away, but I will send these to our engineer and perhaps email them to you for you to review.
okay,
thank
Very
you.
good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Richard, where'd I go?
I see you. No, it's not going. We can see you.
I can't see you.
Oh.
There you are.
Okay. All right. So what are we going to do then about the accounts under 1, 2, and 3? David, do you know what we're doing?
Well, I mean, 1, you can move on. 2, I'm sorry. I guess you could forbear on number 1. Number 2, I'm concerned about, and I didn't get to look at number 3 yet. But
Okay.
number 2, I'm concerned that that should be approved.
Okay. What do you suggest? You want to look at 3 while we move on?
I will.
All right, let's do that. Let's come back then to the, under D, the accounts. We're going to come back to that. We're going to move on to E. Under superintendent information.
Okay. Let me pull it up. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to thank Mrs. Kristen Smith, Dr. Fike, and Mrs. Raymond for assisting in the unpacking and preparation of the new Chromebooks. That was quite an undertaking. I would like to thank Mr. Pushkar, Mr. Smithola, Mr. Bundridge, Mr. Price, Mrs. Tarzan, the administrative staff, and the custodial staff for also assisting in the unpacking and preparation of the new Chromebooks. I would like to thank Mrs. Kahn and Mrs. Leonard for assisting in the upcoming rollout of the Chromebooks to our students. They have devoted countless hours in preparing for the distribution of the Chromebooks. I would like to thank Mr. Petonic for assisting me in preparing the Chromebook handbook and the student parent Chromebook agreement signature form. The Chromebook handbook and a copy of the student parent Chromebook agreement signature form have been placed on the district website for viewing. Students will be receiving a paper copy of the student parent Chromebook agreement signature form and are asked to return it to their school as soon as possible so that the Chromebooks can start to be distributed to them. I also know that this is not going to be a very popular topic, but every Friday we do get notification from the Department of Health as to what the county status would be. I know that last week we were notified we are in substantial. I don't want to predict what tomorrow will bring, but if we are in substantial again, I would recommend that the district follow the guidelines of the Pennsylvania Department of Health, which state that we should be in virtual. There are some districts that are looking at various plans. I know the holidays are coming up, and that is a major concern to a lot of districts. Some districts are looking at going virtual learning from December 1st through December 14th after the Thanksgiving holiday, and January 4th through January 15th after winter break. I just feel I have an ethical obligation to remind the board that we should be following the recommendations of the Department of Health. And I think that that the status should be reevaluated at the end of the first semester. That is all I have to report.
All right, thank you. CWCTC report.
Just a couple of things. We got, I think you guys got the email earlier from those forwarded, looked like from the tech, or maybe it wasn't, maybe Mr. Masher sent it, but either way, they have a few positive cases of the COVID. 2 staff are out right now, 1 student. They're doing all the contact tracing. They actually closed down the Cosmo, the robotics, and the health. They're all going, they're doing virtual now. I think it was probably the last meeting that I attended, the principal had resigned. I don't know if I already reported that or not, if that's old news. I'm sorry. And then, but the only thing else is the students are preparing for the Skills USA competition, of which we have, I believe, 10 students that are going to be involved in that. Some of that's also being done virtual, but they're still operating 5 days a week. And I think that's really about all I have.
Jim, I have a question. Are we busing our kids to the VOTEC?
As far as I know, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the off days. I've never was clear on that.
I mean, are we providing transportation for them now is what my question.
Yes, yes.
Oh, good, good, good. Because I had heard we weren't. I had a parent call me because she was driving her child to the school. And I was
Well,
wondering.
that could be on the off days. I'm not sure on the off days. Mr. Masha, do you know? I mean,
I thought we were busing every day. Mr.
Okay.
Kopiec, are you?
That's great.
yeah, I've never heard that if we wasn't. I know they're open 5 days a week. Our kids are allowed to go there.
Yeah, they're bussed every day.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Crofcheck, with any of the 3 programs that are shut down, do we have kids? Do we know if we have kids yet that are in quarantine because of that?
I believe we have 7.
That are in quarantine from the VOTEC?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on. I believe WIU is Mrs. Smith, correct? Yeah, so,
Yeah, I
All
have
right.
a question about that. Are they having meetings? Are there meetings at the IU? Are they Zoom or what are they doing? Do you have any?
Not
idea?
everything was virtual, Catherine. Dr. could be wrong. I know like there's some other meetings that go on there, like Mr. Masha has a superintendent meeting. Those are all virtual, correct?
Yes,
And Clairview remains closed,
yes,
right?
yes.
So I think that they are meeting, but I believe they're virtual.
Yeah, Heather said they were virtual.
Did you say Clairview is closed?
Yes. Clairview remained closed after the 2 weeks of substantial, and being that we're still in substantial, Clairview never opened back up. So Clairview is still closed following the guidelines.
How are we teaching those kids, Michelle? Do you know?
I believe they're virtual as well. Haven't really looked into that too much other than to just know that I do know they never reopened. They remain virtual and all learning remotely.
It's a big center. Mhm.
Highlands program is closed down as well, and they'll reopen after Thanksgiving. But I did notice today that Fayette County is trending towards substantial as well. So I don't know what will happen with that program either.
Thank you.
all right. Committee updates. You want to go ahead and any of the committees want to report? Have anything? As far
Well,
as the,
I'll go first.
go ahead.
I can see that the Policy and Personnel Committee has met twice. We are working on the policies that Mr. Masha suggested we need to start with. We started in the 800s and are working through those. And then we had a few in the 200s that have to be done for an audit. So we have worked through those to the best of our ability. Mr. Masha is now waiting. Mr. Masha is going to meet with Mr. Kiefer, who has to go over some of the ones that deal with safety and school officers and some things that we couldn't possibly know. And there's a couple things that have to do with cafeteria and how they run things. So as soon as we get answers from Mr. Masha and those individuals, we will be able to bring them to the board for review.
Thank you. So as far as the budget and finance, we've had, I believe, 2 meetings. And we had gone over the bids for the copiers and had interviewed those companies. And, I think we're ready to move forward. We have a recommendation and we're ready to move forward on that. So that's basically what we've been doing. There, we haven't gotten into any budgetary items yet, but I'm sure that will be coming soon. So I believe that's the end of that committee report. Anybody else? Any other committees?
Yes, Mrs. Rhodes, the Building and Grounds Committee met on Monday. We talked about some personnel issues, the hiring of a maintenance, building and ground supervisor, and also hiring a maintenance person, which those two positions are just replacements for people that had retired. So that's all we're discussing now. We just need to get those two positions filled. I don't know if Mrs. Williams has anything to report. She's also on the committee.
No, that was all. We have a lot of things to talk about, but until we have somebody in those positions, we really can't move forward.
Anybody else?
Our committee didn't meet because one member was under the weather, so.
Okay. Righty. I think does that take care of about all the committees? I think so. All right.
What was that last committee? What was that last committee, Gil, that did not meet?
Not
Amy.
extracurricular,
Academic and non-academic.
Yes, that's it.
not academic.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Solicitor information.
This is not in anything in writing in my section of board docs. I will probably need to interact with the policy committee. There have been a large amount of regulations adopted in regards to Title IX. And I did a CLE put on by the School Boards Solicitors Association. And it's quite like, well, it's not quite likely, it is necessary to go in and revise and probably expand policy in regards to Title IX and sexual harassment and things like that. And there's a lot more paperwork and procedural requirements that need to be addressed. I'd be interested in knowing the schedule for that committee and what, if anything, you did, and you probably looked at maybe policy 848.
We did.
Second,
848. We did look at 848. It was part
Okay.
of our review.
so I'd be interested in your comments on that, and then I'm going to have to get you a lot more information. The second thing is that, and I don't know whether you want to deal with this now or towards the end of the meeting. Yesterday, the Department of Health came out with an order dealing with masking that implicates athletics. And today, late in the afternoon, I saw, and Mr. Mash and I had talked about that today, along with some other issues. Late today, I became aware of guidance put out by the governor. And I also noticed that the administrative team, Mr. Krofchak, had met and made some recommendations about winter athletics. And one of which, overall, I don't have any legal comment, but item number 1, mask must always be worn by all individuals participating in sports, no exceptions. It appears to me that the order from Secretary Levine plus the guidance does mean that the actual participants in the sport, as a general rule for the winter sports season, should be wearing masks, or, and this is where it gets a little complicated, there is a specific phrase that I wrote it down. And I might mention that Mr. Mash and I also spoke with Dr. Wilson, who is the Excella doctor that we deal with as the school physician. And so there's some different aspects of this. But basically, there's section 3 of the order that contains certain exceptions. And athletes who fall under section 3 of the Department of Health order of November 18, 2020, would not be required to wear a mask, but must be at least considered strongly towards using a shield. That's probably pretty close to being a requirement. And if that's to be the case, that raises the issue of whether the school district should recommend or require them to supply a medical excuse that wearing a mask would either cause a medical condition or exacerbate an existing one, including respiratory issues that impede breathing or mental health condition or disability. So the problem here is that that shouldn't be used as a means of saying that the entire team doesn't have to wear masks. But the reverse of that is also a problem of mandating masks for athletes who truly have some kind of a condition and could be accommodated with a shield. I don't know if there's going to be a situation where an athlete couldn't do either and still safely participate. The legal issue that we have is that this is going to require amending the health and safety plan for the winter athletics. It may be possible to try to deal with that tonight, but it's rather frustrating that, you know, obviously this is after the board docs agenda goes out. I did not have time or opportunity late this afternoon. It was really past 5 o'clock when I was still looking at this, to have a written resolution to even email you. So the question is whether to attempt for me to orally state a resolution to do that. And there certainly could be areas of discretion where you want to make some changes, but I would probably be working off the one that was adopted in October, have to incorporate your plan about, I think the policy that you approved was to allow 2 tickets per participant, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Per home participant, yes.
Per
home participant, so no visiting spectators.
Okay. And or I don't know, have a meeting next week. I don't want to keep talking about this if you know it's going to be very awkward to deal with tonight. But if you want to deal with it tonight, then I'll either now or at some later point try to orally outline a resolution for you.
So this is an order and we can't decide, yes, we want them to wear masks or no, we don't, correct?
That's my opinion based upon the order, yes.
So can we just say participants will have to wear masks unless they bring in a medical excuse, at which point they may wear a face shield?
You can say that, but because the existing policy has some other problems with it. I mean, I don't know. Do you want me to start dealing with it? I'll start dealing with it. For instance,
at the last meeting, we voted on winter sports, which included wrestling.
Yes.
How do you deal with shields in wrestling?
I don't know.
Even masks in wrestling. Wrestling is a whole different ballgame. We voted on that policy, that winter sports thing, and it was listed for a couple of a high school or middle school or something like that. But how do you reconcile those orders with a sport like wrestling?
I don't know that,
Swimming. You
I don't
cannot
know you
swim
can.
and wear a mask.
I don't know that you can.
Hmm.
This seems to be I mean, obviously, I'm not making a political statement. I'm just trying to be a realist. I mean, there previously had been language in the governor's previous guidances strongly recommending that winter sports be put off. I made a short cryptic comment yesterday when there was some discussion about masks. And I hadn't even seen the order yet. And the governor's guidance wasn't out yet, that this seems to be the kind of backward way of doing away with winter sports without using those words, but rather setting up all of the conditions and requirements that force you into that position. However, it still looks theoretically possible to do some winter sports, like basketball. I don't know if you say do all. I mean, if I think the order does apply to wrestling, so I'm not sure how they will wrestle with masks on. I don't know.
You know, Mr. Petonic, many of our sports are very strenuous. Basketball, kids run up and down the court, they're breathing very heavily. There's a lot of exertion put forth into a number of our sports, and our kids take it very seriously. And I'm just wondering what the considerations are for that aspect of their physical involvement. They can really get short of breath, you know.
Mr. Masher, do you want to join in with our conversation with Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, we had specific conversations with Dr. Wilson to that effect.
And nurse, and our student nurse, I think, was also involved.
Yeah, Mr. Petonic and I both had some concerns that wearing a mask would add undue stress on a student athlete under those conditions. Dr. Wilson seemed to indicate that the possibility would exist that it could be done. You know, obviously there's going to be a conditioning factor that's involved. I know that Mr. Boring had been working, I guess, late this afternoon on putting some kind of protocols together. And I don't know if Mr. Boring has any insight on this, but I do know that Mr. Petonic and I, in our conversation with Dr. Wilson did indicate that he believes that it could be done, but there would, you know, we'd obviously have to be very cognizant of some athletes having a pre-existing health conditions that could exacerbate, you know, their situation.
There's some sports that are outdoors and some that are indoors. There's differences there.
There is, Dr. Flake. He seemed to believe that basketball could be done. Mr. Petonic, am I wrong in that assumption?
Well, there are multiple aspects to our conversation. One was that he agreed that masking is a
necessity,
medical recommendation and necessity to help prevent spread. The reverse of that is if you make the children mask, the well-conditioned athletes who do not have some undiagnosed or even a diagnosed medical condition will be okay. But what if you have a situation where a student maybe had a heart murmur, but otherwise was very healthy, and previously had been passed for this kind of activity. So those parents who are aware of those situations, our concern is that they would probably want to consider the possibility that your child might not mask and want, I guess the question is, are we going to just merely leave it that everybody's going to mask unless you come with a medical excuse, then you have to wear a shield? Or do you also as a board want to say that, parents need to be proactive with their medical doctor to deal with situations where there have been medical issues of which they're aware, but the child was cleared for sports, as to whether they should participate in sports or whether they should not wear a mask and maybe just a shield. Now, with a shield, I don't know enough about this as to how much of a fog up situation you have when you're running as distinct from just being in an office. And I don't know if Mr. Boring or any of our personnel have experienced that or tested it or tried running for a couple of miles with a shield on.
Whenever you know, when I jump in, Mr. Patton, I can say some things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, hi everybody, how we doing? I did meet with our winter sport coaches today, and we kind of drew up some protocols that we think we can, as coaches, follow, at least starting out, to keep our athletes safe and to do the things that are needed and required to try and have some form of seasons. Some of those things, real quick, just to run through it, was one, like Mr. Mash said, you need to be cognizant of the student athletes and students you're working with, and the students and athletes and their parents also have to be cognizant and understanding of current recommendations and where we're at with wearing the mask and whether your child participates, get a medical from a doctor, etc. You work different activities. You have groups come in for 4 to 5 minutes at a time, like a group A, while group B rest. Group B comes on, group A rest. I can say that I've worn a mask while wrestling. I've had no issues with it. Can say provide ample breaks during practice for water, rest, at least the first couple weeks starting out to get these kids built up condition wise while wearing a mask to see where things go from here. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying if we don't try, are we failing the kids as well? So that's where I'm at with that. So I know it's unforeseen times. It's all rough. I get it. So I'll let you guys make the decisions, but I think we can safely follow these without harm, and also talking with parents and letting them know where they're at with all this. I think if we don't try and give them a chance, again, are we giving our kids the best chances for everything we have here? So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Boring, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
As of, I think it is tomorrow, the seasons officially start, but
Yeah.
that's just with practice and conditioning at this point?
Yeah, the first competition is until December 11th.
Okay, that was my question when we actually started in competitions with other schools and,
Yes.
and whatnot.
And those competition dates may get pushed back anyway, so it's going to be more practice time in the foreseeable future than competition time. So there's time to reevaluate and see where things are at.
And it would be up to the WPIAL to decide if they're pushing back any competition dates?
Yeah, the PIA meets again on December 9th. So they'll make recommendations and decisions again then to see where cases are at and where everything else is at then as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Ms.
my
Boring.
understanding is, I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask Mr. Boring a question.
Yes, Mr. Patonic.
I have the mask protocol for winter sports practices. Is that what you put out today?
Yeah, it was just a rough draft that I had shared with Mr. Mash on things that me and the other coaches had talked about, and our trainer, our Excella Health athletic trainer, Rochelle, talked about
Okay.
it.
Okay, now generally, I don't have a problem with it other than number 2, to be more, I guess, discriminating and careful about how we phrase this about masks. But you orally just said something about doctors or something, and you said it a little bit too fast. I didn't find it in here. What was your comment on that again, please?
So yeah, and after listening to you, that probably would need to be edited to include the no exception, take that out, and where if they have a medical from a doctor, they could wear the face shield.
Okay.
So we don't really have to decide this because it's an order. So either they have to wear a mask or a face shield. You guys just need to decide how that's done. So we can just, right? Is that correct?
Mr. Patonic.
Well, that's true, but you still need to amend your athletic,
Health and
Plan.
safety plan, yeah.
health and safety plan for athletics.
So can we not just add this to that?
Hey, you know what? Why don't I just go with it and do it, because we're spending all this, and you're either going to say, okay, or this is too confusing and no, but we're kind of going around in a circle here. So if you want me to go ahead, I'll go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think we have to because it goes into
Okay.
on Friday,
All right.
correct?
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right. So I don't know if Peggy has access to the October 15th agenda and could bring up and I don't even know if she can do this. Can you bring it up on the screen? The health and indoor winter sports, I think was item F4. And I'll start going through it. Is there a way to do that, or can't we do that?
The one that was adopted last week, it's simply, at the end, it simply says they'll follow all the recommendations of something or other. The last statement.
Last week was, I think, dealing with the numbers of participants.
I'm talking about that winter sports thing, Dave, that said,
You need the health and safety plan, correct?
yeah, and the last statement on that health and safety plan says that you'll abide by the conditions and terms and mandates and dictates of something or other there. I thought that pretty much covered it. I have it.
This one on October 15th, Mr. Platonic, looks like it just is talking about the occupancy.
Well, it was modified and you had some inclusions, and one of my fears is that we're going to miss something. You know what? I'm going to start talking. So my position is you have that, the initial whereas clauses, you can probably go with those. You get to the second page, you have the occupancy limits. Those are the same. For venues with a maximum occupancy of 0 to 2,000 people, 20% maximum. You've already passed, so you can incorporate by reference what you did last week about 2 tickets per home athlete. Down below, whereas we had the situation where we stuck in what the current incidents were. So for the period ending 11/12/2020, Westmoreland was 144.3, Fayette was 87.4, Westmoreland positivity was 8.2%, Fayette was 5.4%. Go to the next page. The Southmoreland Board of School Directors amends its health and safety plan for athletics as follows and directs the superintendent to amend the template based on the following and forward to Pennsylvania Department of Education. Number 1, the capacity for total attendance at Southmoreland indoor venue shall be determined by following calculation and shall not exceed 25% of the maximum occupancy of the room. And for the high school gym, it's 1183, 20% calculates to 236. For the middle school gym, and maximum capacity of 750 and 20% calculates to 150. As are further adjusted by social distancing and special consideration with spectators and other persons in attendance as determined below. A, both teams and their respective players, coaches, student assistants, emergency health and personnel officials, and press. B, I'd ask someone to insert the policy about the numbers of spectators. I believe it's 2 tickets per home participant. Was there anything else in there that needs to be included? That's the maximum for spectators. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, moving on. I don't know if there's any other special consideration for the high school gym and middle school gym. Item number 2, spectators and all other persons attending, including athletes, shall be required to wear masks on Southmoreland school property is required by Pennsylvania Secretary of Health's previous orders, and most notably the one of November 18, 2020 at 12:01 a.m. And by its adoption of the same, spectators shall maintain physical distance requirements of at least 6 feet as may be further defined below. Athletes, coaches, and assistants will abide by the district's health and safety plan for athletics. The athletes who fall under Section 3 of the DOH order of November 18, 2020 will not be required to wear a mask but must wear a shield if they provide a medical excuse that wearing a mask would either cause a medical condition or exacerbate an existing one, including respiratory issues that impede breathing, a mental health condition, or a disability. Next item, spectators while walking in the Southmoreland athletic venue entrance and school parking lot will be required to practice physical social distancing from other fans, of maintaining distance, and while seated shall maintain the following distance from other fans. Now, here's another problem. In the order, also Section 5 of the order of November 18, 2020, it states that Section 3E venues must require attendees to comply with 6-foot physical distancing requirements, to wear masks or face coverings. Does not appear to permit of an exception for groupings as we had done in the past. So I think the 6 feet in the resolution that we had on the previous page where it says individually, it would have to be checked off individually rather than just merely not in the same household. You're not going to have that many people there, but they would still have to sit 6 feet apart. Except as amended herein, as to total number of attendees, whether fans or participants, athletic cheer, band, coaches, students, officials, and press, collectively attendees shall follow the guides applicable to all sporting events previously published by Governor Thomas Wolf. And now that would be November 19th, 2020. Then we had items 5. There will be signage warning that attendees about the following symptoms of COVID: fever of at least 100.4 degrees, persistent coughing or sneezing. Attendees displaying the following shall be excluded or required to leave. I think that was amended to, I don't remember how that was stated. I don't have that on my copy. But the guidance from the governor is that all event attendees, including athletes, coaching staff, and officials, must wear social coverings in accordance with the Secretary of Health's universal face covering order and are expected to maintain social distancing when arriving, attending, and departing. And then farther down, page 4 of 6. I emailed out to you late this afternoon. Athletic directors, coaches, and league officials must review and consider the CDC guidance on consideration for youth sports to modify practices and games to mitigate the risk of spreading the virus. This includes focusing on individual skills. There's several things here. I'm trying to get to something that is coaching staff, officials, and other adult personnel must wear face coverings, masks, or face shields at all times unless doing so jeopardizes their health. We're adding the requirement for a medical excuse. Coaches and athletes must attain appropriate social distance at all times possible, including in the field of play, locker rooms, sidelines, dugouts, benches, and workout areas. During downtime, athletes, coaches, and officials should not congregate. Coaches and athletic staff must screen and monitor athletes for symptoms prior to and during games and practices. I think that's important. I believe it's being done, but that should be emphasized as part of the plan. If individuals participating show symptoms, have a temperature of 100.4 degrees or higher, or are sick, they must be sent home. I think that is a health consideration for the participants that should be included. Then, of course, all athletes and coaches must bring their own water and not drink from other persons' water jugs. Avoid shaking hands, fist bumps, high fives during the game. Limit unnecessary physical contact with teammates, other athletes, coaches. That's part of basketball. Don't share equipment. Try to separate events if multiple events are scheduled for the same evening. We're doing no concession stands, I believe. That's item number 6 in our policy. Concession stand will be closed. And coaches should create a backup staffing plan, which should include cross-training staff and coaches and training all coaches. And then, of course, encouraging washing hands frequently. And then this needs to be amended, and Mr. Masher would need to submit it to Harrisburg. I want to make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion as stated by Mr. Botanic to approve the athletic plan.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Carson. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Botanic, may I work with you tomorrow to get all that, all the particulars?
I didn't know this was going to happen. I have stuff
This meeting's
booked.
recorded, so you can just rewatch it.
Yeah, I mean, I will try to interact with you, but it may be, different points of the day.
Mr.
But
Matt,
I will
can help you
I
as
will
well.
do everything I can to assist. Yes.
Okay. I'll work with Mr. Boring also.
And Mrs. Tarson, were you able to get a lot of what I was saying? Okay, maybe if you start
I will.
developing something from that so that we could review it.
I will.
Okay.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
No.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
All right. Mr. Petonic, do you have anything further in your, for us?
I don't know how you want to handle the Copier resolution when we get to it, whether you want to lead the discussion, whether you want me to comment on the resolutions. I'm going to take a break and not talk about it now,
Okay.
unless you want me to.
Now, why don't we go ahead and talk about it when we get to it? Is that okay?
That's fine by me.
Okay. All right, moving on then to approval of payment for high school elevator repair contract to Lynn's Elevator Service Incorporated.
Whereas the elevator repair has been completed, inspected, and is in service. Whereas the contractor has provided all documents required by the contract. The treasurer is authorized and directed to make final payment, one payment for the entire contract of $53,516 to the above contractor, Lynn's Elevator Service, Inc., and to remit the cash bid bond of $5,000 $351.60 to the same contractor.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Polakowski, second.
Second, Love.
Is there any discussion on this?
I just want to say something that
Go ahead.
we don't get an actual certificate, but I want to give thanks and kudos to Mrs. Geyer for tracking down a kind of a sheet that comes from the Department of Labor and Industry by the inspector. And on it, there's his name, Hallowell, and that it passed. And it's been in use, but I just wanted to show you that even though we don't get a certificate, we do have some pieces of paper to say that that happened.
Good.
Mr. Botonic, on that paperwork, does it say when that job was completed?
It says the inspection date was October 7th, so it would have been close to that. We had communications with Lynn's Elevator, and I was communicating with our architect and shot back to him a list of paperwork to be supplied, and he supplied that paperwork. There's a drawing, there's the certificate for the payment of the labor and the materials and all those kinds of things.
Mrs. Rhodes, may I also thank Mrs. Geyer for all her help in getting that
Yes.
organized?
I'm just happy to see that the work has been completed and, you know, it just seems like a long time coming, but thank goodness it's all done now. So thank you to everyone involved. I agree.
The other thing is, I mean, I know you're paying the contractor. I know you're unhappy that it took longer than expected, but this bid was, I don't remember if it was $20,000 or $40,000. It was so long ago underneath the other bid. So you did get a good price, at least by the bid process. Good in the sense that the other bid was drastically higher.
Yeah.
And it wasn't far off the estimate. I think the estimate was like 47,000.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Roll call, please.
Dr. Fike?
What is the remit the cash bid bond of 5,000? Is it something that they paid?
Yes, they gave us a check rather than supplying a bond with surety.
And then they get it back?
Yep,
Okay.
they did the job.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
District copier information only from November 12, 2020 meeting.
That is only information, Mrs. Rhodes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right, then we're ready to move on. Are we ready to move on with the Jacobs Creek watershed landover agreement?
My recommendation would be to get those additional pieces of
That's what I
information
thought. Yeah.
and either deal with it in December, might be eligible for December or January.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to table it until we have that information.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
That's all those in favor. That's a voice vote, correct?
Yes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Updated district copier options.
Okay. The board is asked to approve a copier company that best suits the needs of the district. Please choose from the two resolutions attached. Mr. Tonic, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yes.
I want to thank Mr. Tonic for all the time he's put into working on this.
I'd like to thank the committee also for, working on this. And we didn't know when the committee met, and I don't feel that I really had gotten to a point of comfort with this until Tuesday and even a little bit into Wednesday, but Tuesday, Mr. Mash and I had talked and we got involved with Mr. Pushkar. And one of the big hangups with this is whether or not you must have, how desirable is it for this software program called PaperCut. And so we included in the materials that are being sent out, there was a short comment from Mr. Pushkar and then a longer one, which I'm not sure if I'm going to get my hands on it. But his short answer is my question is whether Google is eliminating Google Cloud Print for Chromebooks next year. Well, that is happening. Is PaperCut software the only fix to allow users to print from Chromebooks? And we had great concern about that. So he said, we already have migrated the printing solution over. PaperCut will have nothing to do with it. And then I asked whether it was free, and he says, we are setting up CUPS servers, common Unix printing system. So insofar as PaperCut has a function that, allows Chromebooks to print to printers that you would be getting, that problem appears to be resolved. There's another aspect to PaperCut, which is within your discretion as to a kind of a paper managing function. And then that gets into the nitty-gritty of the proposals as to whether you think that's desirable to include or is not, since it's can be handled in another fashion and not spend that money. So I gave you two spreadsheets in the absence of Mr. Marnell. And your proposal from the Wilson Group, you have options to go with 60 months for $5,499 with unlimited black and white and unlimited color. Or you could go with 36 months for $7,474, unlimited black and white, unlimited color. Now, I had originally kept track of some origination fees and some document preparation fees and stuff like that that was in the fine print. And after seeking clarifications on some things, eventually, after the committee had already been dealing with this, they eventually both indicated that they would not charge for that. Additionally, there's a transition billing that I had originally proposed language on to clarify that it was only meant to apply to take the monthly rent and proportionalize that for a few days so that you could then get to a regular 30-day monthly billing cycle. That's what they were looking for. And originally I thought that's how that was going to be handled, but each of them have also waived that. So if you get it like on, the 20th of the month or something, and you have 5 or 10 days or something before you get to a regular billing cycle, they're not going to bill for that. They're going to start with a, 30-day cycle, and it depends on what you pick, 36 or 48 or 60. So then the other plan, which is on your spreadsheet and all the documents, you could go with a cost approach in which your monthly rental of the equipment is $3,248.64. This is for 60 months. It's without paper cut. And your average cost, your overage cost, which is from, first copy, first impression, for black and white, it is $0.00285. So you're dealing with portions of a penny. But for color, you're dealing with 0.0285, which is 2 cents and then 8,500. So it's 285. I can't even say it, 10 thousandths, but it's 2.85 cents. And then those same numbers are the same for the overages. If you go with the 48 months, if you wanted paper cut, the Wilson Group would finance it at $283.37 a month, or you could buy it for $14,190 as a one-time charge. As I understanding it, they weren't really promoting that idea. It's just that it's there as an option. Then the 48 months is $3,983.64, and the 36 months is $5,223.92. On the Toshiba quote, their option 1 was really a lease purchase agreement. And because we didn't do this through a bid process, it's not really eligible to go forward with that. So out of their options, you have 2, 3, and 4. So for option 2, this is a true lease rental where they get the equipment back at the end. If you include paper cut and Exmedius, now Exmedius allows you to have faxes come in through the internet. So for 60 months with no free copies, the monthly rental for the equipment is $3,370.33. And then their per copy black and white from copy 1 is 0.0029 and 0.0290. So that's 2.9 cents for color. So those numbers are the same for each month or for each term. The 48-month plan is $4,114.84. 36-month plan lease is $5,119.14. Option free, no paper cut, no Exmedius software. So that is 60 months, $2,850. 48 months is $3,479.84. And 36 months, $4,328.14. Now, if you wanted unlimited from Toshiba, no paper cut, no Exmedius software, 60 months, $4,870.33, 48 months, $5,499.84, 36 months, $6,348.14.
Do we have a recommendation from the committee?
Yes, the majority of the committee, I believe, was going to recommend the Wilson Group. That was my interpretation of our meeting. Mr. Masha, did you have another, was that,
That was my impression also, Mrs. Rose.
yes, that's what I thought.
I was on that committee and I do not concur with that recommendation. Are we allowed to ask questions? We allowed to ask questions?
I guess as long as you keep it professional.
What, Gail? We're talking about almost $500,000 here, so I think we need to talk. Mr. Botonic, would you look at page 3 under the Wilson thing that says additional information? And I too thought it was $237 a month for that additional $14,000 for paper cut. But then it says it increases the monthly lease by $283.37 a month. Which one of those figures is accurate? The one you gave or the one that's
No,
in the?
what I did was I took the total cost of $14,190, divided it by 60, and that's the number I came up with. So that's what I asked him.
I did too, David. But if you look on page 3, it says it.
I
increases
confirmed with
the
him
charge.
that that's what they're doing. If you want to do a one-time purchase, you can. If you want them to finance it, then it costs more. You're right.
So it could go up $283 a month if we don't give them the $14,000 some dollars right up front.
Except
At the bottom of this
the
chart,
real question is, do you really want or need paper cut software?
well, look at the bottom of the chart that Wilson says. It says, note, the paper cut mobility print module, which is available for free and allows Chromebooks to print to copiers, but is not the full paper cut software. What does
No,
that?
that's PCMP.
That's that managed print. That's that managed print.
See, there's another thing out there. It's called PCMP. It is paper cut mobility
Print.
Yeah.
print. And what happened was paper cut, because of COVID, put it out there for free that you could print from your Chromebook. Okay. So I was on that track of trying to figure out, okay, is that what we're going to do? But then Mr. Pushkar came in with this information. We already have CUPS, so we don't even need that.
Does CUPS provide the same programming and content as paper cut?
There will be functions in paper cut, I believe, that deal with, how do I want to say this? Managing
User usage, right, Dave?
user usage. And it allows it to be, I think, fairly automatic. If you go with the Wilson Group, and there's a term for this, sharp something management, which you're getting with them. The difference is that, as I understand it, once or twice a year, the technology department has to check up on addresses of all the employees, or if you have a new employee, you have to deal with it and integrate them into the system. And their representation of that is that it's an hour or two once or twice a year. Now, what I don't know from Mr. Pushkar is whether the CUPS really gets involved with that function. I don't know, but I'm sort of dubious that it would. So that's another little variation between the two. Did I answer your question?
Mr. Petronic, I went through today and I counted, and the board has received to date 315 pages of information on these two groups. That's not counting the ones we discounted. So I just want the public to know that we have received 315 pages of information. But I have a yes or no question, which is a really, really big one with me.
Well, most of that information is their big things that they presented, packages.
When Mr. Marnell asked questions, he listed, and I think it's question number 7, It says in there, and this is really important, it says in there, if we don't use, because under the Wilson contract, we would, for 5 years, we would be buying 2,650,000 copies, or 44,166 copies a month, year round. But he says in there, he says in his question, if we don't need all these copies, will you reduce our cost? And Wilson said, yeah, we'll reduce your cost. Is that in their contract?
Okay, I'm sorry. I know there's a distinction to be made here. So I'm trying to remember. The lower monthly rental from the Wilson Group with the lower monthly charges, I'm sorry, the lower impression charges, that lease is already as low as it can go from their perspective, and you're paying per copy. You have an equipment rental, and then it's whatever number of copies you use. If you use a small number, then you're paying that small number times those rates. Or if you have a bigger number, then you would have more expense. Under the unlimited, I'm trying to remember. I know they both represented that they would be willing. Well, except Toshiba does not have an unlimited plan for a fixed price, but on their options 2, 3, and 4, there is some language in which they have indicated a willingness to meet with the district and consider those kinds of things. My concern is that without some kind of objective numbers, that's not a really solid contractual binding, and I don't have anyone to give me those kinds of numbers, and those kinds of things weren't made part of this.
The answer to my question is no, that is not written in a contract, that they will decrease the price if we do not need those 2 million some copies over 5 years, right? That's not in there. I read it to the best I could. It's not easy, but it was just a question and answer thing where Mr.
The Wilson Group, I'm hesitating because there was some different language that the Wilson Group that might be applicable to the unlimited approach, but that's a higher monthly rental, the $5,499. I'm trying to think where that is, and I may not be able to find it lickety split. I may need a recess or something to go through my papers. I'm sorry.
I have another question. Toshiba says here on their document, it is important to understand that Google Cloud is going away and you'll need to look for an alternative way of printing from the Chromebooks that the school's invested in. Papercut solves the problem. And then it says, also remember with X Medias, you can eliminate the cost of the landlines that support faxing in the district, estimated to be a savings of $400 per month. Well, I added that up. It comes up to many, many thousands of dollars over these contracts, to 15, 20, 25,000, like looking at the different contracts. Is that also included in the Wilson contract? Because I couldn't find it.
No, and part of the problem is I don't know that information was originally sought, and it apparently Toshiba supplied it and the Wilson Group didn't.
All right.
From the original, I guess, requests for proposals, which I didn't handle. Mr. Marnell did.
If they can save us $400 a month, that takes $400 a month off the cost of the machines, of the rentals or whatever you want. But I have another question, Mr. Petonic. So with the unlimited Wilson contract, can we make 530,000 colored copies?
I'm not going to do the math on this.
No, there's no math involved. If it's unlimited colored or black and white. Can we make the 530,000 colored copies and it would be the same price as 530 black and white ones? Is that correct? Because later on in their agreement, they knocked that down to 26,000 colored copies. Later in their document, it isn't unlimited colored copies. They have the 26,000 figure in there. So, okay, maybe they're just using that as an example. But my
I'm
question,
sorry. I want to make sure I didn't make a mistake. Okay. Do you want to refer me to a page?
well, there's 530,000 copies in their contract, okay? Unlimited, whether they're black and white or colored or anything. So technically, without doing any math, you could make 530,000 colored copies, right?
I'm trying to go into their document to look for this. I don't want to take this lightly.
But I think it's on page 5. Let me get back to that. Like I said, there's
Well, I'm
316
I'm
pages
going
there.
back to the October 1 big manual and proposed investment, $5,499 per month. Lease includes new sharp hardware, maintenance agreement, unlimited black and white and color pages,
Okay,
unlimited service, maintenance agreement, unlimited black and white and color. District will see no overage charges for any pages created on the copiers, regardless black, white, or color. So that's what I'm looking at. Now, do you have another page you want me to look at?
refer back to 26,000 color copies. Like I said, Mr. Pullman.
Well, okay, but show me where that is and I'll try to answer it.
Pages, I'm doing my best here, okay? I've written
Okay,
every word.
I'm with you. Let's work through this.
Okay, look at page number 5.
Of
Under,
which document?
okay, let
The
me get
additional information or the Wilson Group?
the Wilson Group additional information.
Okay,
Okay, TWG additional information, okay? Now you go back there, currently proposed is the breakdown of monthly expenses, and that's where you see 26,000 color pages, 529 black and white, not 530, or 429 and 20,000 color.
give me a second. I'm counting
Page
pages.
5.
Now, we're not going to count the cover sheet, or are we?
Well, okay, so I numbered to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. No, I didn't count the color page at all. It starts our response to the questions, Mr. Petonic. That was page 1. And then
Okay, because I have I have this other thing that was stuck in mine by my assistant, and I don't know the order it came in. So now I'm going to go to, it's printed at the bottom. Well, okay, 1, 2, 3,
and then it stops. So you
4,
put your own 4 and your own 5 in, yeah. So it says,
5.
yeah, page 5.
He's
Currently,
giving us an example.
26,529.
Okay, with our unlimited monthly investment of $54.99, we include an unlimited maintenance agreement. This means that we have included a reasonable number of black and white color pages based on historical usage into our maintenance agreement, but to benefit the district, we are offering to not charge any overages for pages run beyond our allowances for black and white and color. This provides budget certainty. As we have disclosed to the district and shown below, the example are rate 0.00285 and color rate 0.285. This applies to the base allowance that is within the monthly payment. It's already built in. Under the unlimited program, should the district run over this allowance, the overage is effectively 0 black and white and 0 color.
So we could, okay. Can you read the paragraph above it? It says, as verbally stated on 11/2/20 Zoom meeting with the Finance Committee, we are willing to work with the district and review the usage on a regular basis. And if over a period of time, we are determining that usage is being reduced due to remote learning, digital teacher, or any other factor, that we will mutually agree on future allowances, which will further reduce the district's monthly investment. That's what I want to know. Is that in the contract, or is this piece of paper, is this legally binding that they will do that?
Give me a second.
Because with the Toshiba proposal, they're saying don't buy more than you're going to use. So we control it ourselves. And if we're not using it, we don't pay for it in terms of those.
I have to go to I have to go to the Wilson Group resolution and look at something.
Can we put a time limit on this discussion? I know you can do that sometimes. Is that possible?
It's-
I almost have to, I remember that there is confusion over another aspect of this in which the Wilson Group is willing to manage the district-owned copiers, 16 district-owned HP printers. It's not part of either one's basic proposal. And that's another number.
You talking about that
0.8 of a cent black and white and 8 cents color, but that's actually not the question you're asking me.
that managed print thing?
That managed print thing is kind of like an additional option. It's in the resolution. You could do it or not do it. Insofar as the willingness to sit down, boy, I don't want to misrepresent this. I'm sorry. And I remember I had concerns about it from both of them as to whether it was truly part of the contract or needed to be, more objectified. And obviously, in my mind, if you're going to go with the unlimited, okay, and that is obviously it's going to cost more, and it turns out you don't need that much.
Paid for it.
Then I would think both of them would be willing to come and talk to you. The problem you then have is they're going to be looking at what track record you have for usages. And I think a reasonable business person would be looking at putting some kind of limits if you're going to change the deal to, lock in those lower usages or have some kind of a buffer or something like that. Now, the problem with what I've just said is I don't want to speak for them on that issue. I'm not trying to denigrate either one of them. I think they both have good intentions, but I do have concerns that if you're looking for an airtight enforceability with either of those, I did have some concern about it. Now, I'd almost have to sit here and go through all my paperwork again to see if there was a specific line on one of these pages that wasn't on here. It was actually in another document, and I'm not trusting my memory on that.
Mr. Patani, what were these managed print services at 8 cents, 0.008 black and white? It says something about machines that we own,
Yes.
Okay, and
You're not
they're-
renting them. You've owned them before. You still own them. You're going to own them after you.
Okay, and
company.
so nobody has anything to do with those. Nobody has anything to do with those machines. Is that right?
Well, no.
Okay.
I think what happened, boy, I wish Jim were here, was that your previous administrators talked the previous Comdocs, Amdocs, whoever it was, the Xerox folks, into, in effect, giving you some additional pieces of equipment and covering it. So,
Could I offer,
or maybe you already owned them. No, that was it. You already owned them.
Mr.
and they
Patana, could
just-
I offer a little background?
They threw it in and made it for free. But since you're not going to deal with them anymore, now you don't have anybody to deal with that. But if Mr. Pushkar has something more specific on that, I would welcome his information.
Yes, okay, so the district printing environment consists of leased Xerox copiers. Currently, there's Xerox, and we're entertaining a supplier or a contract that may provide a different brand of networked walk-up copier that can also provide printing services. We also employ standalone district-owned laser printers that are desktop models and are not considered high volume. They're considered like personal use. When we entered into the contract with ComDoc, which is now AmCom, they offered to take over responsibility for our district-owned laser printers, which would make them responsible for providing materials, consumables such as the laser toner, and also if provide any repairs or maintenance necessary on those devices. So that's probably what you're talking about, the things that are owned by the district, but they're charging us for. They're charging us for providing toner, the consumable ink, so to speak, for the laser, and also repair and maintenance on those things. So if we have a LaserJet printer that breaks or needs some service, they'll come in and either replace it or repair it. To clear up any other confusion, if paper cut is part of the financials in these contracts, that is not anything that Chromebook printing is dependent upon. Mr. Smithola has worked diligently to establish a replacement for the Google Cloud print, which will go away, which will be deprecated by the end of the month. And that is already in place, and PaperCut may offer some functionality, but PaperCut's mainly a management package, management software that allows you to place restrictions and or quotas. It allows you to manage your print environment so that you can keep costs down.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's not the end all be all. If you got Chromebooks, you need this to be able to print to our copiers. That's not the case. Maybe it was misunderstood. Maybe it was misrepresented, but that's not the case. So PaperCut is not something that, you know, we have to have. So you can eliminate that from the decision as to whether you want to apples to apples. What's the cost per printing, or what your volume is? What's the length of your contracts right now? The proposals, what is the length of the proposed contracts?
36, 48, or 60 months.
Okay, once you enter into one of these, have a new company come in and provide new copiers, they set up pretty much software that keeps polls all of the copiers to find out how many impressions they're making, a paper count, the page count, so to speak. And that is how they bill us. It reports back to them how much we're using and utilizing the devices. Through that, it probably will take at least a year, maybe a year and a half to 2 years of use to even get an idea of what your volume looks like. And from that, you start to develop a trend to figure out, you know, we need that much or we need more. We're being we're given an allotment, and when we go over that, then there's a price per page after that. You know what, maybe we need to bump that up because we're going over that, or we're never reaching that ceiling. Maybe we need to lower that threshold. And generally these companies sit down with you and they do a historical trend and determine your usage and what's the most cost-effective solution for you. So they generally sit down and negotiate or work with you to figure out your usages and what best suits.
Well, Papercut and Xmedius are included in the Toshiba bids.
And again, those Papercut is, not, I would not count that as like, that's the extra bell that we really need. And Xmedius, that is fax only, and the way technology goes today, very little phone line faxing is done. Most communications are handled through email anyhow, through attachments and things like that. If faxing always results in a lot of environments, faxing usually results in a printed page, and it's unnecessary. We don't really need printed pages. We can email things and it can be kept on the computer, and it never really has to generate a printed page with a cost associated with it.
Well, the Toshiba said that their Papercut prints from Chromebooks and monitors usage. It says both. But Mr. Pushkar, I had a really important question. The only people who can print from Chromebook are the teachers or the people at the school, not the kids. Is that right?
In certain environments, like at our high school level, we've set up, we already have management capabilities where we can basically dictate which devices or which specified copiers the students can print to. Because a lot of times in English or other typing intense assignments, it might be better to hand in a paper. It's just easier for the teacher to manage. And if it's even necessary, we can limit that, but we really only allow printing mainly at the high school level.
But if we're on cyber school, what does that mean then? Who would be printing anything if we're
Well,
on?
nobody, in a virtual environment, nobody would print. And that's just it. We're migrating away from student printing anyhow.
Well, that was my concern because, again, I go back to that paragraph, which is not in black and white, that says we will adjust your costs. And the other thing that concerns me is that we pay for the paper. And if we use 530 copies, we will be using 1,060 reams of paper a year to reach that 530 unlimited amount. We buy the paper. So even at 1,060 reams of paper a year, that's a lot. That's a lot of paper. I understand that that's not considered that expensive and maybe it doesn't matter, but to me, that seems like a lot of paper that we would have to buy if it's unlimited,
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody want to have a comment or question? Anybody else?
So I just had a comment about the unlimited versus, I'm sorry to drag this on even longer because I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I checked out a little while ago. So I did have a message from a teacher who was a little bit concerned about the per copy pricing and how that would work. And specifically, that we don't have a lot of printed curriculum right now or workbooks for kids. And we are printing a lot of those types of things. Obviously, if we return to all virtual, that's not going to happen. Or we would be printing packets to still send out because yes, we'll have Chromebooks, but if we don't purchase curriculum for the Chromebooks, aren't we still going to be in the same position of needing to print off things that we're using? So that's just my concern of at what point during the month, like, is it a break even point? Did you all figure that out? Like how many copies could we make? Does that divide out per teacher? Obviously I doubt that the middle school or the high school is using the same amount of copies as what we're using in the elementary level where kids are doing a lot more practicing versus, whenever you get up into the upper grades, I'm sure we're not making as many copies for things. So that's where my concern is, without investing a lot of money in curriculum, as we haven't done over the years, we're left with making a lot of copies. So where do we fall? I realize like what's happening now might not be what happens 5 years from now, or even 3 years from now in this contract, but I'm just concerned about the per copy price.
It's 0.002. It's 2/100ths of a penny. I mean, that's the.
Right, but like there has to be a break even point. So like there's a, okay, so going back to the Wilson agreement, because that's just the one I added up, didn't pick favorites. There's a difference of $2,250.36. So I'm assuming that we could make in black and white copies, we could make 789,000 copies a month. In color copies, that's going to substantially decrease. And there are color copies that come home from the school with different things on them. I know at some points, building principals had shut off color copies so that we weren't making them. But I'm just saying, like, there's obviously a break-even point. And what has our usage been? What will our usage be if we have to go back to virtual and we're making packets for kids to go home?
Then why do we have the Chromebooks, Michelle? What's their function?
I just explained to you, Catherine, that if we don't purchase curriculum, it's not like you Google up your curriculum. So if you...
Oh, see, I was told differently. I was told, I called Mr. Mash about that, and he said the teachers do have a curriculum that they pull up from the internet, for their distance learning.
Okay, so yes, there is virtual teaching that is going on within a Google Classroom. There are no paper copies for you to practice printing your name. There are no paper copies for you to practice printing words or any of those types of things that we're practicing in K-5. So this is my point. When I'm receiving information that a teacher is printing thousands of pages a week for her students, those things are still going to continue without curriculum. So if we don't have a workbook for a student to work out of, we are still going to be making copies. So yes, Google Classroom serves a purpose, but Google Classroom does not provide worksheets for practice.
Nor does it provide textbooks, which we do not have online. And our workbooks, in most situations, the curriculum is so old that you can't buy the workbooks anymore, which is why they are copying them. So we're still going to have tons and tons and tons of copies until we buy new curriculum.
And if I could just interject as to what Michelle was talking about, it is my understanding that the unlimited quote that we were given from, say, the Wilson Group was based on a monthly average usage of 530,000 black and white and 26,000 color. And so even at that price per copy amount, that still equals 530,000 black and white and 26,000 color. The benefit comes that if we end up using less than that, then we would be paying less. But my opinion, not that it matters, but I think it's easier to probably go with unlimited. But I just don't want to give anyone the implication that we're trying to limit how much a teacher can copy. I know that was never my intention from any of the discussions that I was involved in, that although those capabilities are there, that would only be in an extreme abusive situation if we found that one teacher was excessively making way more copies than anyone else. Then we would have that option to limit copies, but that was not ever the implication from what any discussions that I was involved in, that anyone wants to try and do that, to set a limit saying you can only make this many copies per month.
So is that, like, that feature is in the unlimited feature, or would that be if we went with a per copy?
I think it's either way. Like the copiers themselves have software that can monitor usage regardless of how we're paying for it. The software is there to monitor the usage either way, regardless of what payment option we pick.
So is the,
Monitor usage. Why would you monitor usage if you have unlimited copies? Why would you monitor anything?
Well, I mean, if one person comes in and is making like 30,000 copies a day, you could presume maybe they're using it personally or doing other things with it. So, I mean, you could still monitor if someone was being excessive in their usage.
and we're
Plus,
still
you don't
paying
buy
for
that much
paper.
paper.
Right, we're still paying for paper.
Right.
So the recommendation of the committee was the Wilson Group. Is the recommendation of the committee for to go with the per copy or to go with the unlimited?
Myself, I would go with the Wilson Group for unlimited.
And yeah, I believe that was the majority consensus
Yes.
at our last finance meeting. Obviously, that was not everyone's opinion, but that was the majority consensus to go with Wilson for the unlimited. And to throw it out there, I also would vote for going for a 60-month term. It saves us the most money. So I would throw that out there while we're talking about it.
Is that a motion? Was that a motion?
It could be.
If it is, I would second that.
I mean, I would
Well,
absolutely move that.
You have to go through the resolution form though, if you could direct yourselves to one of them.
Okay, then I will motion to,
There's blanks to be filled in.
I see that. I'm trying to look
Okay.
at all the blanks.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go through that for you?
Yeah, because it's section A, it says insert choice from table, and I don't know which table you're referring to because I looked and I wasn't sure.
This
so-
one.
Oh, okay, okay.
So if you were going with the Wilson Group and you were going with 60 months unlimited, you would insert term of 60 months at a monthly rental of $5,499 per month.
Correct.
And
And I do not believe that, from the information Mr. Pushkar has given us, I do not believe that paper cut is a necessary addition. I do not believe that that is necessary to add on.
so under that scenario, you would not have the next part with cost per copy of 0.00285 for black and white impressions and 0.0285 for color. You would strike that
Okay.
and then go to not additional option for paper cut. So you would choose that. There would be no origination fee or one-time document fee. There's no transition billing. And to include a maintenance agreement for all service and supplies, including toner, cartridges, drums, and other materials as stated in the proposal, but excluding paper and staples, but not service for desktop printers. Now, you then have in B options beyond that, which you don't have to do, but you have the prices there. One would be for the managed print services for the 16 district-owned HP printers, including toner, break fix service, all to cost for per page of 0.008 for black and white and 0.088 cents for color. And or shredding bin rotation service to include 90-gallon service receptacles at a per bin rate of $22. Now, I would imagine that if you wanted to, you could divide this up and deal with that as a separate motion if this is too confusing to include it, or if you.
Well,
You know.
and my question is, are those things that we could then just add at a later date? They don't necessarily need
Well,
to be
that's
something
what
we
I'm
do
not
right
sure
now.
of. That's what I'm not sure of. it's not clear from their proposal. I mean, I think there was some discussion, I vaguely remember at the committee meeting that, oh, maybe we don't know that, maybe we'll deal with it later. I don't know what happens to the price later. So that's, I have to be careful about how I state that to you. I'm not trying to push you into this. It's just that I don't know. I don't know how long that part of the offer stays open.
Correct.
And then item 2 is all important because those are all the contractual documents. So the print management agreement, 2 sides, addendum for changes sought by customer. They're agreeing to those. Maintenance agreement, 2 sides, addendum to maintenance agreement, changes to printed form, the clarification to additional services, the addendum to the agreement, 1 page. And then sections 2, 3, and 4 of their, and 5, which includes their service guarantees, all from their big booklet. So everything except the big booklet is attached to this resolution. So because you have the big booklet as a public document, and that's why I put it in here. So when we do this, we're going to have a physical meeting on our side, and I'm going to watch people sign all these documents. And we want the other side, sign all these documents. We're not going to just zing it back and forth,
Okay.
and then maybe some of these don't get signed. Okay?
Okay.
Did you say?
Or not,
Okay.
if you
Okay.
choose the other plan.
Are you saying that this is a 60-month contract for $5,499 a month? Is that correct?
I'm not saying it, that's what they proposed.
No, I missed the numbers. You were speaking pretty quickly and I wasn't sure which numbers you used.
I'm
60
sorry, for
months.
60 months, $5,499 per month.
Okay, I got that. Okay.
Now, I agree with the analysis of Member Raymond. I believe that what has happened is that they've taken the usages and applied them to the, the past usages, applied them to the rates they're proposing. And so that's how, if you wanted to go with a 60-month fixed price of $3,248.64 for rental and pay for all copies, that's the way you get to your break-even point. The 530,000, I think it was 530.
Yes.
It's either 530 or 560, black and white, and the 26,000 color. So if you think you can do better than that, then you might want to consider the lower price with the cost per copy. But I'm not trying to interfere with that. I'm just trying to make it clear that that's the distinction. And I agree that that's how you try to figure out the break-even point. But the big problem here is, I know I don't have any way of estimating future usages. It's possible that for some periods of time they could be higher, for some periods of time they could be lower. I'm not getting into that. That's not my department.
So Mr. Botonic, the public needs to know then that this board is voting on a motion that will cost the taxpayers $329,940 plus the cost of paper, which would probably run it up to about $500,000, somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 over 5 years for copy services.
You want me to run a calculator?
Mrs. Raymond,
And the public should also know that this contract over the term of the next 60 months saves the district about $300,000 over the contract that we were just in that was for a 60-month term. So, I mean, we have to spend the money and we're cutting our cost in half compared to what we're spending currently.
Nobody considered our current contract as a renewal. It got thrown out immediately.
Well, several months ago, it was considered to be renewed.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, they asked those people to make bids and come in and do presentations. No,
All right. All right.
Can I say one more thing?
Go ahead, David.
I mean, I don't want to make a recommendation. I don't feel I should do that because there's a lot of judgment involved with this. I just want to draw your attention to that with the cost per copy approach, that you do have built in to the Wilson system. It's not as robust as paper cut for the management function, but there is a tracking system that would sort of require putting an order in by the user, and then before, it gets assigned to a printer, and then before it prints out, there's another entry or something that has to happen when you go to go pick it up, rather than just printing it in advance and then going and printing it up, in order to try to prevent the situation of printing out huge amounts that nobody ever goes to print out to pick up. So that's kind of a different approach than putting just a ceiling on someone's usages. There's that ability to self-restrain, self-limit. I guess there's one more option available. And I'm trying to be, as fair and objective and conscientious of pricing and everything. I know there's a desire to get over this. I guess my concern is that if you wait till December 7th at the reorganization meeting to take this up, you're getting pretty tight. It might be doable, but I don't have promises. I do know that if you were to vote tonight, that this is all doable. But I don't know if you table this to get more information, how much elbow room you have.
Well, I mean, I was making a motion.
Yes, I was just going to say that. Yes.
And I would say at this point, part of that motion, I would probably exclude the section B of additional services. I would exclude that at this point, and then that is my motion. Wilson, 60 months, unlimited. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
All right. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Christie Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
No.
Dr. Fike.
This is one of the most horrifying decisions I've ever seen a board make. My heart goes out to the taxpayers. My vote is no.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 6, 2 no, 6 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Okay. The Forum for Workplace Development.
Board is asked to approve the membership invoice for workforce development at a cost over 5 years of $20,000.
I need a motion.
Can somebody tell me what this is?
I was going to say the same thing. I don't even know what this is to
This
make a
is
motion on.
ridiculous. This is ridiculous. We don't even know what this is. Where's the tangible output? What numbers do we have?
Well, let's give Mr. Masha a minute to answer the question. Go ahead, Mr. Masha.
This is a county-based forum for many of the districts in the county that provides students work-based learning opportunities and the possibility for internships and job shadowing. So it is a valuable tool for some of our students. And Mr. Krofcheck, I don't know if he's still here. I don't know if you have anything else to add towards that. I do know that I think Mrs. Hanford is our district overseer for that.
Yeah, all member schools within the IU, and there's actually, I believe Connellsville and Freeport are also involved. One of the tangible outputs that they have developed over time is an internship portal that allows for all county or all member schools to utilize this service to seek internships for students, especially with seniors that are seeking to find tangible like workplace experiences. It's kind of been with COVID, it's been a little bit slow running over the course of the last year.
Mr. Kravchuk, can you tell us, probably last year's not a good number to go by, but the year before, can you tell us how many students got internships through this?
From our school, we have not, I mean, I'll be honest with you, there has been a lot of kind of grandiose ideas across the county. It is also a cohort with individual colleges throughout Westmoreland County. It's really been kind of, it's been a slow process through the development of this. So for us, we haven't utilized the services to the fullest extent. It has some of its warts, and but at the same time, it's you know, something that all districts have been involved in.
So does the Future is Mine Club, do they do their own internships? Don't they set up things as well that our kids, I know I've known kids that have used that.
Yeah, not necessarily TFMI. We do have a course at our school, Life After High School.
Oh, you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
But we do have our own course we can already use.
yeah, we do utilize that. And look, I've been involved in workplace development with you know, with the past superintendent as well. And it's a monthly meeting. And it seems to be it has taken many different turns over the course of time. It's been a lot of discussion. You know, one thing that I will always kind of pride ourselves on at Southmoreland is we're kind of doers. You know, we're hands-on people. Like what's tangible here, and I'm just speaking frankly about it. And you know, I'm trying not to sugarcoat anything. And we've met tirelessly for the last several years with ideas and committees and putting all this stuff together. And you know, what have we benefited from it at this point? I'm going to say we've had a seat at the table, and that's probably about it at this point. Mr. Masha, you can attest, you know, we've been there, we've talked, we said, you know, what are we doing? What are we making or putting into action? And that's where we're at.
I agree.
Okay, so from what you're saying,
How many years have we been paying for this? Like how much money have we put into this already that
we were in the last agreement, which I believe was the same agreement, which was 5 years. You know, literally, I mean, I think we legitimized it a little bit more the last time, the last major agreement with the 17 districts by appointing a leadership position. I believe right now that's Anthony Princeton. We've had several leadership changes over time to put this into action. So this would be our second run around at the 5-year commitment. Or I'm sorry, is it 4-year commitment? Oh, this is 5. Yeah, this will be our second round around. So, you know.
Okay. Thank you. Can I make a motion that we do not do this, please?
I'll second the motion.
I didn't hear, did Dan make a recommendation as to whether we should go forward with this or not? My internet was out, so I couldn't hear what he said.
Oh, sorry, I guess I took from that we haven't used it. So I probably inferred from what he was saying that it's not something we've used.
So let me
Okay, I'm
pose,
sorry, I couldn't hear you. That's why I'm asking.
if I can pose some what ifs. I mean, this is the crux of this organization has been what if. And what if we get this great thing together? And you know, like and I agree. What if we get this great thing? And theoretically, if we do everything that everybody talked about religiously for the last 8 years, it will be great. It'll be a central repository for internships and things that will help with the development of Westmoreland County. But you know, through 2 superintendents, I've been sitting at meetings wondering, you know, going back to the 80s, where's the beef? You know, like, so like we really haven't seen anything tangible out of it that benefits us specifically. So that's my opinion, and I'm just being blunt about it. You know, can we bet on what ifs? Perhaps. But at the same time, I think we have all the right resources and all the right staff in place. You know, Mr. Ansel has done a fantastic job with developing Mrs. Hanford opportunities to get our kids out into doing job shadowing thing without their help.
I agree.
So,
I'd rather put that money towards our own program that we know is going to benefit our kids with 100% certainty, because we already have that in place.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. You know, did we have any kids to go forward with this program? So I agree with you, Christy. And so we have then the motion is then to not approve this.
To decline.
To decline to approve. And we had a second, correct?
Yes.
All right. So do we have to, let's see, is asked to decline the membership invoice? And we're changing that to decline, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
So a yes vote is a decline.
correct. All right. Any other comments on this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Pike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries yes to decline the workforce development, and 1 absent.
TFIM 2020-2021, the future is mine.
Board is asked to approve an agreement for the 2020-2021 school year for the Future is Mine at a commitment fee of $250. That is what Mrs. Christy Smith was asking and Mr. Krofcheck was discussing.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this further? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Christy Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Job description for working physical plant director.
The board will be asked to approve the job description of the working physical plant director. And there was a change on number 20. 20 will state, recognizes that the school district operates 24 hours per day with an immense workload and takes responsibility to provide leadership to ensure that those operational needs are met. I do believe that is correct, Mrs. Williams. Okay. Mr. Polakowski, that is correct?
Yes.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Job description for custodian supervisor.
The board is asked to approve the custodian supervisor job description as attached.
I'll make the motion.
I was just going to say, I need a second.
I'll second.
Was that Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I'd like to comment that this is a new job classification and description. It did not exist before. This is new. Correct?
Correct.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Varsity girl. Pardon me?
Mr. Rhodes, were there any other walk-on items concerning these issues?
Yes, and I didn't know if you wanted to wait until we were done with all this or if you wanted to do it right now.
That is up to the board.
At some point, I'm going to have to address you again before you recess or adjourn. I'm sorry.
Okay. Does it matter where we put this? You can, I would
Do
say,
it now since we're on it.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's just do it now.
Mr. Patonic, is that what you needed to speak to us about, or can we move on this?
I'm sorry. I've been getting emails from Copier people while the meeting's going on. So I'm gonna have to bring some things to your attention. So I'm sorry, I migrated from the agenda. I know you dealt with, you deal with job descriptions and then where are you now?
We have just approved the job description for the custodian supervisor.
You approved that.
We would like to walk on.
The other part of that,
Person.
the other part of that,
To offer a employment, is that what you mean?
Yes.
mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Ask for motion to suspend the rules to add it to the agenda.
All right, I'll ask to a motion to suspend the rules.
I will.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, the board is asked to approve offering Darren Basham the position of working physical plant director. And did we determine a salary? Was it the salary discussed?
Yes.
Yes.
A salary of $64,190. And I do believe that we also wanted to include that if Mr. Basham declined the offer, that would authorize administration to post and advertise, or not post, but advertise for this position. Is that correct?
Yes.
From my understanding, yes.
You want to put a time limit on acceptance?
Monday?
Do we have to include, if there's benefits?
He would be entitled to the same benefits as the Act 93 agreement provides.
Right, what currently exists in the Act 93 plan.
Yes.
May I suggest maybe Tuesday, because I know that this gentleman was working a double shift the other day and it was difficult to get hold of him, and I would really like to be fair, you know.
Okay, that's fine.
Could you repeat that, Vince?
I would ask that if you would consider Tuesday as being the deadline, because he was working a double shift and it was difficult to get hold of him because of his schedule and his sleep.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right, I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
A second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
What is his name? Darren, what?
Darren Basham, I will spell that for you.
Thank you.
It's Bashioum.
Okay, thank you, Vince.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
She got kicked out of the meeting by accident. She might be trying to get back in.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
would Mr. Pushkar be the person that she would be trying to get in?
He would.
I
Yes,
don't.
yes.
Mrs. Raymond, your motion,
I'm sorry, I got kicked out for a minute. I don't know what's happening.
vote for the physical plant director supervisor, Mr. Darren Basham.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
And Mr. Masha, do we have to, or Mr. Potonik, do we have to vote to advertise that if he would decline?
Was that included in the motion?
I thought it was.
Yes.
I thought it was included. It was to advertise.
Okay, and are
It's
we-
already there.
if we want to create that account with Career Link in order to post the jobs there that we have available, because we do have the other maintenance positions available right now as well. Roy Cunningham's position, and then we have that half-time custodian, half-time maintenance worker. I would like to post both of those positions with Career Link as well, because we haven't had much luck filling those.
I went on today and started establishing a district level account. So I will continue to do that. I fell short a little bit with the technology end, but I will continue to work on that.
Is that a charge?
No.
No.
Okay.
And the possibility exists that there could be some veterans, I do believe, that might be able to take advantage of that situation. So it has it has some multiple benefits to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Varsity girls volunteer assistant basketball coach.
The board is asked to consider Susan Spadero as a volunteer varsity girls assistant basketball coach. Clearances are on file.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second Carson.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Mr. Patana, am I allowed to vote? She's my sister-in-law.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8, 1 absent. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Middle school wrestling volunteer.
The board is asked to consider Brett Huffman as middle school wrestling volunteer for the 2020-2021 school year. Clearances are on file.
Need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
High school wrestling volunteer.
The board is asked to consider the approval of Al Govern as high school volunteer wrestling coach for the 2020-2021 school year. Clearances are on file.
I need a motion.
Make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Advertise for a substitute van driver.
The board is asked to authorize administration to advertise for a substitute van driver for the 2020-2021 school year.
Motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Authorize the posting of the middle school assistant volleyball coach.
And head.
I'm sorry,
And head, isn't it head middle school and assistant?
head middle school and assistant middle school volleyball coach.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Hiring of Megan Swopeberg as woodwind instructor.
Board is asked to approve Megan Swopeberg retroactively as woodwind instructor at a supplemental salary of $1,357 for the 2020-2021 school year. Salary is from the 2019-2020 supplemental agreement.
I need a motion.
I'll make the
Make the
motion.
motion.
All right, Peggy, you can pick first and second.
Who was the first? I got.
It was,
Mrs.
it was
Love.
Smith and Love.
Okay,
I'll be the second.
I got it vice versa.
It doesn't really matter, does it?
I have a
We're
question.
good.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Now, if our children are on distance learning, is there woodwind instruction that occurs?
This was for the beginning of the school year, Dr. Fike. There, somehow or another, she was inadvertently left off of the instructors for band.
Oh, well, okay, when the kids are not in school though, how does this program implement it? That's all I want to know.
This is marching band, Dr. Fike.
This was already over, Dr. Fike. This was in the fall.
It was marching band, not concert band.
So this is retroactive and then she's done.
Yes,
She's done now.
yes.
Oh, okay, okay, that's what I didn't understand. Okay, I thought she continued, okay.
We can't hear you, Gal.
Mrs. Rhodes, volume.
Roll call. Mrs. Williams,
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes,
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Sorry, my internet went out. I'm sorry.
Motion
Mhm.
carried. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Okay.
Mrs. Rhodes, did we ever come to resolution with the accounts? I'm
No,
not,
we did
No.
not. We did not. That's true. Okay. We were waiting for advice from Mr. Petonic on this.
As to number one, September Treasurer's Cash Investment Report, I believe that could be tabled. And the same with number three, Board Summary Report. Those are past events. It's to let you know what's going on. The one that I'm still concerned about is the General Fund Accounting Check Summary, which provides for payments. I'm not at all certain that, all of those go out before the end of October. There's certain payroll ones that would, there may be some things that haven't been sent out that are awaiting approval. And so that's why I'm concerned that should be approved. Or I'm not sure who doesn't get paid. That's my concern.
Okay, so as far as number one, the 2020 September Treasury Cash Investment Report, we can go ahead and table that then unless,
Yes,
okay. All
that
right,
stuff
so-
definitely happened.
okay.
I have a question. There were some people that had questions. Were they on number 2 or were they on number 1 and 3?
I don't know.
Mine's on number 2. So it's fine. Let's go.
Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to table the first one or we want to move on? Number one, the September Treasury Cash Investment Report.
I motion to approve.
Okay. Second on that?
I'll second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
yes,
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
General fund accounting check summary for 2020.
Board is asked to consider the approval of the general fund accounting check summary for October 2020.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second,
roll call, please.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carried 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
2020 board summary report.
Board is asked to consider the approval of the October 2020 board summary report.
Need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second.
roll call, please.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
At this time, Mr. Petonic, did you have comments, questions, or something you needed to bring to us?
I do. As a prelude, the board finance committee had met and considered proposals and came to certain conclusions, or at least initial impressions. The problem is that after you met, we started receiving additional information and, in fact, proposals. And first of all, I got an email from the Wilson Group to me at 8:53 p.m. Subject from Mr. De Leonibus. We agreed to review the usages and lower it. Was in the November 3 communication. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I can take them at their word, but I mean, they could review it. I don't know how much they would lower it. I don't know how to objectify that. That's my point. I'm not denigrating them. Something has been misrepresented to you, okay? And what the misrepresentation is that if you go to the Toshiba additional information and you go back and you count the cover page, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get to this page. I don't know if you can see that, but you might want to get it up on your screen. Okay, that one. Toshiba had submitted one with paper cut and ex medias, and they made a typographical error. They put 60 months, $5,119.14, 30, but they meant 36 months. And I clarified that with them, and they corrected that in another email they've just sent me. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is you got to go to the top of the page, and you have to actually go to a previous page, which is, it's really hard to read. Below are quotes, removing paper cut and ex medias. And I will quote the district with unlimited prints, but I strongly encourage you to not go this route with whomever you choose. I strongly encourage you to think about what the future would look like in the district and how these software solutions can help you. Now, the problem is, they then go to 60 months, and then they say $2,850.33. If you add in the impressions to go unlimited, cost would be $4,870.33. If you take the cost per copy option and pay for what you use, the rates are black and white 0029, color 0.029. And the way they presented that, it was kind of confusing. Now, I got it right that with the $2,850.33, the charges per copy are correctly stated. And there's no paper cut and no Exmedia software. So my table is correct on that part. The part where it's incorrect is farther down. And you go to the last entry. I'm sorry. Lease rental only, no paper cut, no Exmedia software. So they're sending this out at 4 o'clock on Friday the 13th. And I'm doing a quick read of it. Over the weekend, we have some other emails going on. I get back to it on Monday. I see clarifications from both sides on some stuff. So where I made my mistake is on the table option 4, 60 months, monthly rental, $4,870.33. Copies are unlimited, black and white, unlimited copies. Color. I should not have put these additional overages charges here. They should be X'd out. Okay, were you with me? Anybody lost? I'm looking at faces.
Is there any way I could get a copy of that?
This was all submitted in board docs. Did you not get that?
Is there any way I could get a copy of that?
This?
Yeah.
I can't email it to you right now. Do you not have this?
You can't email it to me. I need a paper copy of it. Can I?
It's in the board doc submission. It should be there.
I'm not in there. Okay, I need a paper copy. Yeah, me too, David. I need a paper copy. I'm on the board.
Dr. Fike, it should
Aren't you
be
in
in your
board docs?
packet of information. It should be in your packet of information. It was on our board, and you get a copy of all of this.
Mrs. Raymond, does this
Okay,
change?
here's my point. Here's my point so I can state this because
Go
I don't
ahead.
want this misrepresented because I don't know if this is going to change minds in a motion for reconsideration. So what that means is with the Toshiba people, 60 months, unlimited copies, $4,870.33.
And they just voted for 60 months at $5,499 a month. Is that right?
If I'm reading this correctly, and it was the way they presented it, so Mr. Nuzzo sent another email to me, which I printed off, and okay. Without paper cut and Exmedius, he says it again.
It's $41,520 less than the contract that they passed, right?
I want to make sure I don't have this backwards. So with paper cut, maybe that's where I made the mistake. Okay, let's try this again. With paper cut and Exmedius, $3,370 I have that up there with paper cut. 3,370. Oh, this is so confusing. I gotta go to the previous page. If I did not encourage this here, you will still be able to fax and below are quotes removing paper cut and expedious. I will quote the districts with unlimited prints. Encourage you to not go this route. If you would like to discuss and negotiate any of these items, please further let me know. Removing paper cut and expedious. 60 months. Okay, the 60 months, $2,850.33 has with it the black and white and the color charges. Then he said, but in the middle of that sentence, and if you go into the Toshiba documents, you see this. If you add in the impressions to go unlimited, cost would be $4,870.33. So there's no paper cut, no expedious, 60 months, unlimited, $4,870.33. 48 months. I have the numbers correct, $54.99.84. And then 36 months is 4,000.
6,000.
Wait a minute. No, that's not.
Mr. Petonic, Mr. Nuzzo sent an email to you and several board members and myself at 9:30, 45 ago. It states, I am watching the board meeting. Please note that my 60-month unlimited contract below was for $4,870.33 without expedious and paper cut. I urge the board to review my proposal more closely. You have all made a mistake with the representation of the Toshiba final number.
Okay, that's what my concern is. Yes. So those per copy charges should be X'd out on option 4.
So are we able to go back and redo this or no?
Well, I mean, the problem is, I got all hung up with this paper cut stuff and Chromebooks, and it took the whole week to straighten that out.
So here's my issue. We have a committee that was supposed to do this. And then we have Mr. Petonic getting in it. If we have a committee to do something, the committee should meet together, come up with a recommendation, have it all settled, bring it to the board. This is our recommendation. End of discussion.
Now,
no, that's definitely not what happened. We had 100 million questions. We had discussion. We had emails during board meetings. This isn't okay. It's not okay.
I agree. I don't like the way this happened. But here's the problem. It wasn't a bid situation. They're proposals. You can still continue to negotiate. This gets emailed to me. Am I supposed to ignore it? So I put it into the table. I gave it to you. Mr. Marnell's absent. I don't usually do, all the number stuff. I also spent a lot of time with languages, and I got those straightened out with both of them. But then I had to worry about this starting on the 13th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you now have you have Toshiba with their kinds of copiers offering you unlimited usages for 60 months for $4,870.33. Now, the problem is the Wilson Group
Mr. Botanic,
Uh,
may I interrupt you? I would like
and-
to make a motion to table this and take it back to the committee with a proposal for the first meeting of the month in December.
Christie, you have to undo the motion that you passed. You already passed a contract.
You would have to do that.
$329,000. You
Well,
have to
you would have to
Right.
make a motion to reconsider.
rescind it.
Well, first you do is you make a
I can
motion to reconsider, and then you make a motion to rescind.
Why?
Well, that's the way parliamentary procedure works.
I mean, why wouldn't we just rescind it based on new information?
Well, I don't know. The first thing is, do you want to reconsider? That's the parliamentary procedure. Now, here's another problem. Because Toshiba did this, I didn't give these numbers to the Wilson Group. Okay? So,
This
do
is
they
not,
both need a drop dead deadline to give us their final numbers? Because
so
you've got big variations in numbers here. See my point?
is there a new number for Wilson's Unlimited? Or is it the $54.99 that we thought it was?
No, their number's $54.99. That was on October 1st.
Right.
On November 2nd, in conjunction with the Finance Committee meeting, they gave numbers for not unlimited costs per page with lower monthly rentals.
Right, which we have all that information in front of us, correct?
You have that, but if you compare 48.70 and 33 cents for 60 months with unlimited from Toshiba with 54.99 unlimited from the Wilson Group, I'm not sure that you all comprehended that.
But I also went with the recommendation from the committee. And
But
that,
the committee didn't have this information. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It came in.
I have this
afterward.
information right here on this paper.
You do now, yes, but they didn't have it back then. And I feel like they're, been made to look bad or perceived as not, being interested in this, and they were. The problem is it came in afterward.
This is $41,520 cheaper. That's a lot of money. It's the cost of a new teacher.
Now,
Here, let's just get that straight, not for 5. But it's not $41,000 cheaper per year. It's $41,000.
What you passed, Michelle, what the board passed a 5-year contract with Wilson. And this is $41,520 cheaper than the $330,000 or something that you passed. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but that's total cost, total savings.
That's what your contract was. That was the contract you
Okay.
voted
For the 5 years.
a 5-year contract.
When is our contract up with the other company?
the end of January, no, the end of December. I think it then becomes, I had this information.
You
So
start-
we already know they're-
It
we're
could
not
become
gonna
month
do
to
that.
month,
Yeah, it's something like
and
that.
either side could then give notice to terminate it or something.
Yeah, yeah. I
Except
thought they said it was the end of
we
December.
already, I think the notice to terminate already was sent to Xerox.
Okay, it was the end of December, I thought, then.
It is the end of December.
Mhm.
And originally, and in the language, there's a rollover provision for a monthly. There's also a 3-month thing.
And you can buy. all that
But the
stuff.
notice was already sent.
Okay, what do we need to do to rescind this contract? We have to make two motions, one to discuss it again and then one to rescind it. Is that what you said?
Well, the first would be a motion for reconsideration. And then you would, you could talk about it, or you could actually make a motion to rescind.
I'd like to make a motion that based on the new information we have, which consists of a $41,520 difference, that this board vote to reconsider the contract that they authorized earlier. Or discuss the contract, reconsider it, yeah.
I'll second.
So what do we do now, David?
Well, you need to vote on that.
Voice vote or roll call?
I think we should, I think you better do a roll call.
Roll call. All right, roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Pike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
On the way to,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries to reconsider. Previous motion on the copiers carries 8, 1 absent.
Now what do we need to do, David?
Make a
Well, you
motion.
can make a motion to rescind, and then you can, as part of that, discuss, if you want to discuss, whether or not to, you know, what your differences are and your preferences. If that passes, then you're going to need another motion to decide when you want to take this up again and how to set limits on it.
I make the motion that we vote to rescind the previous contract with Wilson.
The resolution, yeah, the contract itself hasn't yet been signed, so you're rescinding the authorization.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the resolution, that's right, the resolution, the vote, yeah. Yeah, we don't have a contract yet.
I'll second that.
Roll call. Is that what we need? Roll call?
Yes,
Pike,
please.
Dr. Pike,
Yes.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent to rescind the Wilson resolution.
I'd like to make a motion that the committee looks at this again and brings a recommendation with all questions answered back to the board on December 7th.
I'll second that motion.
I'd like to say something about that. When this committee met, it's called Finance and District Operations or something like that. I was surprised that it was about a copy machine because I felt very strongly that this was such an important issue that the whole board should have heard the presentations. This is not a little thing. This is a big thing, a 5-year commitment.
I'm going to, Catherine, I'm going to stop you for a minute. Seeing as how it is now 10:27, I think we need to find out from David what we need to do from here on, what the next step we have to do, David.
Well, there's a motion on the table, Gail.
Well, you can have the committee, you know, meet again and discuss. What my
Yes.
question is, are you going to limit the proposals, the financial parts of these to what's already been disclosed? Because now both sides know each other's numbers. Or are you going to ask for a deadline for both of them to submit their final financial numbers without changing any of the other legal terms for the lease and management agreements that have already been, gone forth, back and forth with me, and you had already approved all that part of this.
Mhm.
Is
So
that
that
what
you're only talking about the term of months, whether it's unlimited or cost per copy, and they give you your numbers, their numbers.
Is that the motion you want us to make now, David, that we simply get
Now,
the
wait.
information?
I think there should be a deadline to submit those. And then the other question is, does the committee want to hear from them again? Or do you want them to come in on December 7th and present to all of you?
No, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
They need to, this is ridiculous, and it's really awful for them too, because they're probably now going lower than they ever wanted to go, and what's fair for them. I say we give them until Monday. Give us your offer, the terms that we just voted on, because that's what we're going to end up going with. By Monday, email them to Mr. Botonic. He can give them to committee. We have a recommendation for the next meeting.
Well, you need a committee meeting too.
They can
It
do
has
that.
to be public.
They can figure that out and advertise.
Well, you have to schedule it and advertise it. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And you got Thanksgiving holiday weekend coming up.
Mhm.
In that case,
Okay.
I say that we ask them for their best offer by Monday.
Mhm.
And at the next board meeting, Mr. Botonic will tell us what that is, and we'll go with the cheapest one. That's why we just rescinded the offer, because the other one was cheaper. So ultimately, it appears that we're going to go with the cheapest one. So can we please tell them that we apologize? We're giving them one more chance because it's our fault. Best offer by Monday. Neither of them may want to give an offer at all. But let's see what they have to say by Monday. You can tell us at the next board meeting what the cheapest one is, and we go with it. Anyone else?
I wouldn't want that sent to just me. I would want it also sent to Mr. Masha.
Okay, sure.
Mhm.
Anybody else okay with that?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond, what's your opinion?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All right, then let's do that.
And they can submit any additional information they want about their products and why they're good. And
Yeah, exactly.
but we definitely want the numbers.
For 60-month unlimited. That's what we need the number for, nothing else. No Snapchat, not Snapchat, no paper cut, no nothing. 60 months unlimited.
You're not interested in 48 months or 36 months?
No, because we already voted on that, and that's what the whole group went with, 60 months. And
Could
it's
be
the
a game
cheapest.
changer. Christie, could be a game changer, a big game changer.
Well, we just voted on 60 months, almost unanimously.
Yeah, 60 months. Unlimited.
In saving money, and the 60 months allows us to save the most money with all of these.
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly. Okay. I forget where we are now.
We had a motion by Mrs. Williams and a second by Mrs. Love for the committee to look over again and come back on December 7th with questions answered. But then terms, Mrs. Smith suggested deadline by Monday offer. Mr. Botonic talked to them, the cheapest one. We will go with 60 months unlimited, no paper cut. They need to produce new numbers by Monday.
Okay, now is the committee supposed to deal with those and have a meeting? That's my lack of.
No, we just said cheapest offer, that's what we're going with, and what's to meet about.
Well, then you don't have the
We
committee.
don't have
meeting.
what? I'm sorry.
Then you're not going to have a committee meeting and a recommendation.
Doesn't
No.
matter.
It's just going to be.
Doesn't matter.
That's fine.
So I'll rescind my motion.
Oh, okay.
So we're just going with the lowest bid, period.
That appears to be what is wanted.
Well, everybody will have that information.
I would still think you should ask for the 60 months monthly rental and that's not unlimited with the per copy cost so that you have that as a comparison.
David, are you going to be the one to ask these questions of the two vendors?
Say again?
Are you going to be the person who's going to ask the questions of the two vendors to which we want answers?
I think you're sending a letter. You know, depending on how you make the motion, either Mr. Masher or me, or both of us could send it.
That's what I'm
not
asking.
getting your point.
Are you going to do that? Are you going to do that?
I don't know. You should determine that.
Oh, I think you should. If there's a committee meeting, I want you there. But we don't need a
Well,
committee.
right now, it looks like you're not doing a committee.
No, we're
meeting.
not going to have one. Okay. So as long as you can see this information and make sure that it's accurate this time, Dave, you know, just make sure that it's accurate.
The information was accurate. The table was my mistake on that one entry.
Okay, well, it's all right. But David, you're a human being. We all make mistakes. All I want to know is that if we don't want to do this again. Let's just make sure that we get the bid.
So I just want to say something. This information was provided to us. I believe that the numbers were correct, right? It was $5,499 for the Wilson Group, and it is $4,870.33 for Toshiba, correct?
That's what
The numbers are correct, and it's correctly stated unlimited as the number of copies. So the problem is somebody could have been misled because there are per copy charges in the far right columns. And there shouldn't be. I should have taken those out.
I didn't even pay attention to that. I just paid attention to the dollar amount. So
It's possible, you know.
there was a difference of $37,720. And I just want to state that I had figured that out prior to the vote, but I assumed when I was voting that there were different issues that were going into these decisions other than solely a financial decision. Because putting it out there and saying, I'm just going to go with the cheapest thing to go with the cheapest thing is not always necessarily the best thing to do. So I just throw it out there that I had made a calculation prior to the vote because I read my agenda and read through the information. I didn't feel misled. I thought there were other issues. There were reasons why we were making this recommendation. So I just want to put that out there that I gathered the correct information without Toshiba emailing us during the middle of a meeting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Whatever is decided, but I mean, we all have the information.
That's true, Michelle. So can we just get their best offer? Mr. Botanic will give us both of their best offers, and then we will vote which one we're going for.
And you want
necessarily
just
have to be
unlimited.
cheapest.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we should get the price per copy also.
Is that
I don't know anymore. I'm like, I can't even think anymore.
okay. Is that organization meeting a voting meeting then? Is that what that is? That reorganization meeting is a voting meeting?
Well, it'll have to be.
Yes.
It would have to be for this. Right.
Usually is
Well,
because
it ends up
we only
being
have one
the
meeting in
December meeting.
But it is a voting meeting. It will be a voting meeting.
If
Yeah.
not, you know, well, yeah,
It has to be. If there's
it
no
has
way-
to be.
I never looked at reorganization meetings as voting meetings, but that's just me. That's why I just want to clarify that it's a voting meeting.
Okay. Do we need any, let's see.
So is it going to be just unlimited or unlimited and the price per copy? 60 months,
I was always in favor of price.
Do
per
them
copy.
both.
both. Who's making the motion?
No, I'm sorry.
I'll make it. I'll make it. My motion's what he said.
Unlimited price per copy, price per copy, 60 months.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Is there anything else, Vince or David?
Definitely not.
Yep.
You
We
know,
have
I
any citizen,
I have something.
any
I'm
citizen comments?
gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go because
I
it's-
have something that I would like to say. During the superintendent's report, he discussed the fact that other districts are making recommendations and voting to do some different things with closures over the holidays. Right now, as it stands, Southmoreland School District, we fall at 237.62 and 25.25% positivity. That is through today, and that is specifically our district. The county has posted, I believe it's 1160-ish cases for the week. It is highly unlikely that we will be in moderate. And I think that we should make some determinations of what we do moving forward. With the new recommendations from the governor and from the Department of Health, there's now a 14-day quarantine that is mandatory following any travel. So if we have teachers traveling, we aren't going to have enough staff to cover this. I know that Borough was one district that last night, I believe, voted to extend their break. Many districts are extending their break after Thanksgiving. They voted to extend it after Thanksgiving and after Christmas. And I think it's something that we should be looking at so that we're not coming back and voting again to do something because we don't have enough staff. I also think that it's important that we follow the recommendations that are put out there from the state, whether we believe in this or we don't believe in this or what, or how we stand on it at all. There are recommendations out there from the state that we are not following at all. And there's a blatant disregard to safety. So I would just like to discuss what everybody would like to do moving forward because we have a lot of kids out on quarantine right now. I don't know if everybody else paid attention to their emails today with what those numbers are. We're probably not even sure how many kids have been out sick that may have tested positive, but the numbers here right in our community just from last week have gone up substantially. So I think it's a discussion worth having.
We gave the superintendent the power to make that decision, didn't we?
We took it away from him.
No.
No, we didn't.
I think it's important to note
It was
too
up to
that
him to look at stuff and then he could change it according to what had to be done. Am I crazy or not?
we did not do that.
Mm-mm.
No. I
We did that.
think it's important to note that last week when we voted on this, we thought that we were in moderate for the week because the county had said that, or the state had said that the county was in moderate. And it just came out when all the final numbers came in, we actually were not in moderate. We were still in substantial. So we didn't even have that week of moderate that we thought we had as the tests came in. We were still in substantial and have been. And I'd like to note too that since last week, things have almost doubled. And looking just at our specific school district, I think things are a lot different. We've had a lot of kids in and out of school. And, you know, it's funny because you receive all these emails about opening school up, and we take that into account. And this week, I personally am getting the opposite emails of, I need to know if you're closing school, because if you're not, we're leaving. Or you should be closing the school, from community members, from a lot of different places. So, I mean, we are really, it's 50-50 in this place. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that if I'm getting half and half of these things, I think the safe bet is to go with the guidance.
I agree.
Or go with Mr. Mash's recommendation, when he said that they're extending Thanksgiving break a little bit and trying to put that week in. I'm not sure. I don't know what everybody else thinks. It's a tough one. Things are a lot different this week than they were last week.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know, after everyone is together at Thanksgiving, how that's going to impact. The numbers could go even higher. We don't know. I'm not comfortable going against the guidelines, you know. But again, I did get some emails that were saying, you know, that they thought that, you know, about the safety of their children. So I don't know.
Safe, that's the same part. The children are safe.
These numbers are definitely a lot different this week than, I mean, they were trending this way. Definitely trending in this direction. When we voted to do a return, the county that day had posted 207 cases, which at that point was our highest. This week, we've had 2 days over 200 again. We have some people in our community that are fairly sick. I'm just concerned of what that looks like when we come back after these breaks. So, you know, in looking at a lot of the other districts, they're all having the same issues. I think we've been out longer than most of them, so we're not seeing the positivity counts and the incident as high as some other districts because we've been out. I just think that we need to be providing better for those in the buildings. And at least, you know, with these districts saying that after we come back from Thanksgiving break, that they're going to be virtual for X amount of days, there's some stability there that, you know, that's the direction that we're going to go. Teachers are prepared for it. Students are prepared for it. Rather than us get into a situation where over the holidays, these numbers just continue to climb. I don't, those are my opinions. We most certainly didn't give Mr. Masha the authority to do this on his own, because had we done that, we wouldn't have opened last week, because his recommendation was to not open and to wait for the guidance, which is 2 weeks in anything till you move. So, you know, we didn't move to fully virtual until we were 2 weeks of substantial. And we should have allowed for the same thing to move back to hybrid. We should have allowed 2 weeks of moderate. Last week, for example, when we voted to come back from virtual back to hybrid, our incident rate was 101.84 on the day that we voted. Today, that number is 237.62. We climbed well over 100. We're at a percent positive of 17.59, and we're now at a percent positive of 25.25. I'm not going to get into my personal beliefs of how I feel based on what I'm seeing outside of what the recommendations are, because we're all going to have a different opinion. But these numbers are climbing, and it is not good. Allegheny health department. I don't know if everybody saw what occurred in Allegheny County yesterday, but they are basically begging people to stay home, begging people not to go anywhere. Lots of large school districts in Allegheny County are closing. Many of them are making determinations not to come back till longer after the holidays. Mr. Masha, your thoughts?
I just know that there are a lot of districts right now that are struggling. A big concern with a lot of the districts is that their staffing numbers are getting hit with COVID. They're either placing large groups of students in one centralized position, or they're going to have to close, or they're closing schools because they don't have enough staff. I do know that there are several local districts that have closed till after the break now. So I've been pretty clear all along. I'm probably right now one of the most hated individuals, and I get a lot of derogatory emails, but I have to, once again, I have to state that I'm a commission officer of this state, and I have to recommend that we follow the recommendations of the Department of Health. I understand everyone's, this just is so painful. This is just such a terrible situation.
Madam President?
Yes. Yes.
Do you want the superintendent to ask for a specific kind of motion, or is a board member going to make a specific motion? We have no motion on the table.
So I would like to make a motion that we follow something similar to what Borough did, which is allow for the 14 days of quarantine after all holidays, long breaks anyway. So that would mean, I believe our first day back after Thanksgiving would have been December 1st. Is that correct, Mr. Masha?
Yes, Mrs. Williams.
So I'd like to make a motion that we are virtual from December 1st until December 14th. That's following Thanksgiving break. And then I would like to make the same motion, basically, that we would be having that long break again after the Christmas break, which would mean from December 4th to January 15th, which would allow for the 2 weeks of quarantine if anybody were to travel over the holidays. Teachers would be able to quarantine as well because they would be teaching from home.
Is there any way that we can wait until the December meeting to see how the numbers are tomorrow?
Well, that would be fine for the Christmas break, Amy, but that would not be fine for Thanksgiving.
Wait.
Could we split that motion up?
That's fine. I'll make a motion that after the Thanksgiving break, we are virtual from December 1st to December 14th.
To December 14th?
Yes.
I will
And then-
second that.
I couldn't hear, Mrs. Williams. Is that December 1st? You broke up.
December 1st, which was our first day back.
Okay.
We will be virtual from December 1st to December 14th.
And return on the 14th?
The 14th is a Monday.
The 14th is a Monday, but we would return on Tuesday because that would be a true 14 day from break.
And then we would be back to the hybrid then from the 15th until Christmas break. When is the Christmas
Which
break?
would basically be 4 days.
Yeah.
This is why many districts have gone with a full shutdown. Some districts have gone, districts have gone with a shutdown from now and until January 1st. If you all want to come back on the 14th, I could be fine with that. But if you have a teacher who has traveled and has not come home until the 30th, their 14-day quarantine would not be up until December 14th.
Oh, okay.
So I think part of this discussion, and as much as we don't want to discuss any of this, is the kids' education. If they're going to be virtual, there has to be some sort of consistency between grades, between buildings. And that's an email we're getting, and that's not a teacher problem. Teachers are working as harder than I've ever known them to work. But I think it is an expectation of the building principals and from Mr. Masha that it has got to be, these kids have to be seeing their teachers every day. I know we talked about it last time. It can't be an optional. It has to be, there have to be very clear cut expectations, I guess, for every grade, a very consistent learning. And I know we've been getting tons of emails about that. But I think that has to be part of this discussion.
And to kind of piggyback onto what Christy is saying, while we were virtual, both of my children had the opportunity to see their teachers every day. They both had live Zooms. My second grader had Zooms with her teacher every day. My sixth grader had Zooms with two of her core teachers. And they both were very pleased with that, and they both did well with that. And when I tell other parents that my kids were on a live Zoom, the first thing I hear is, oh, I wish my kid had that. We were in this grade, we didn't do that. And I know there are barriers to that, but I do think that it is something that benefits the children having the opportunity to see their teacher and interact with them in that way.
I think it's important that we see them as well. I think that goes both ways. I think that that is something I would like to see too, that this K through 5 is going to do, and every teacher is literally doing that same thing, that they know what the expectation is, and we know what the expectation is. So that whenever we're getting these emails that say, you know, these teachers aren't doing X and Z, we know what they should be doing. So that is a concern of mine as well. I would like to see something from every building principal that is going out to their teachers saying this is what we're expecting. So the third grade literally isn't, third grade isn't doing something different than second grade, and second grade isn't doing something different than fifth, and that there's a level playing field and everybody is getting the same thing. I think that is something I would like to see, because if
Is there a motion on the
this
table?
way, what was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is there a motion on the table?
I did make a motion, Catherine, I'm sorry.
I mean, the conversation is so far removed from that motion. I need to get back to the motion. The motion is what? Our kids stopped coming to school after Thanksgiving. Is that
After
it?
Thanksgiving until, if you all want to come back December 14th, fine, that's fine. We would literally be back for 1 week, and then it would be Christmas break. And December 7th, we could make a decision what we're going to do. I'm fine with that.
So for now, they stay where they are on hybrid, right?
Yes.
Come on, Gil, it's 11 o'clock.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry, Catherine. This is about education and about the kids. And we literally spent well over an hour talking about Copier. I'm sorry, but we're talking about the health and safety of every single staff member and every single student.
I'm so glad you're so perfect, Michelle. I'm so glad.
all right. That's stop. We're not going to have this.
Let's vote, Gil.
We're not having this.
We have the secretary restate the motion.
Yes, please.
To allow for 14 days quarantine after Thanksgiving vacation, which would be, and go virtual from December 1st to December 14th. Students could return on the 14th.
All right. Did we have a second to that motion?
Yes, Mrs. Raymond.
All right. No
Is
further
it the
discussion?
return the 14th or the 15th?
We'll return on the 14th.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anybody else? Roll call?
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
No.
Mrs. Love, Mrs. Love,
No.
Mr. Polakowski,
No.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yes, 3 no, 1 absent.
I will have a statement to the board tomorrow concerning consistency.
Thank you.
And if I can
I
just
think
say one last thing really, really quick. I
Sure.
just want to say a very personal and sincere thank you to all of the teachers. I know that they are working harder than they have ever worked in their life, and I know they've taken a lot of flack. And I want to sincerely thank them for the effort they are putting in. I don't think they get thanked nearly enough, and I want to publicly acknowledge them.
Mrs. Rhodes, may I also make a statement?
Sure, you can. Go ahead.
I would like to, and I'm not sucking up to the board, but I'd like to congratulate the board on making difficult decisions also. I know that this has been a difficult process for you, and I appreciate, your vigilance in looking out what's best for our students. It's been a very, very difficult situation for everybody. Parents, students, board members, teachers, everybody.
Gail, I'd like to say some also before we leave.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Just for, I don't know if everyone's aware, but just like to make, everybody put the thoughts and prayers with with Pam Govern's family. She works for the school custodian. She lost her husband, I believe, earlier today.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And that's it.
Oh. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Jim. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
All right. Anybody else?
Big Dave.
I believe that the school district lost a former employee, Mr. Ralph Slate, and he was not recognized tonight also.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. And no citizens' comments, I assume.
No,
All right. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right.